Good morning. If we can all take our seats. Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Board of County Commissioners meeting. Today is December the 14th. It's approximately 9:30 in the morning. We're going to start this meeting. This will be our last meeting for the calendar year. We're in the middle of, or the beginning of the holiday season, Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever faith you belong to or believe in. I brought down my grace sign. That way we can all, I can remember that as well during this meeting, because people all know that sometimes the meetings do get have issues, so we should all be giving each other grace. We do have a state representative with us, David Smith. David, would you just stand to be recognized, please? Thank you. David's been a very good friend to all of Seminole County. Just want to thank you for that, David. Our invocation will be done by Jacob Lynch from East Coast Believers. The Pledge of Allegiance will be presented and led by State Representative David Smith, who is also a Marine veteran, so thank you for your service. Can we have Jacob Lynch? Can we all stand, please?
Thank you so much for having me. If you would please bow your heads and close your eyes as we enter into prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just come before you today, grateful for the lives and the opportunities that you've given us, that we have to be together today. Lord, I pray that you would bless each and every one of us in this room today, that you would bless our time together and amplify it. I thank you for those gathered here today and the sacrifices and strategies that they've made in order to help those in need in our community. I pray that each family represented in this room would find rest and joy in this Christmas season more than they ever have before. I pray that this last meeting of the year would bring new strategies and plans for what's to come in the 2022 year, Lord, and what's to come for the future, Lord. We pray that you would bless each and everyone in this room and everything we put our hands to. God, we pray that in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Representative?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Representative Smith would also like to address the board on some of the issues that he is working on here in not just Seminole County, but the state of Florida. Representative, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman DeLaurie, and appreciate the time with the County Commission today. Just to update you, with the upcoming 2022 legislative session starts January 11th. Our 60-day period will run through March 11th, and just would like to provide a quick update on the three appropriation projects, bills that I've filed for Seminole County, and where they are through the approval process, and I'll continue to track that and communicate with the board. So just very quickly, because I'll have to do these in about a minute when I present them, so hopefully I'll be under time, but I filed House Bill 4275, which is a Wekiva River maintenance project. It's a $500,000 appropriation. It has a 1-to-1 match from the county, which is very good. Matching funds are critical to success in the legislature. It's a one-year non-recurring amount of money. The Speaker of the House has referenced this bill to two appropriation committees. It'll go to the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. I expect it to be heard in January. I've already communicated with the chairman of that committee, sent a letter to the staff asking for it to be calendared and a few of the highlights, and we shouldn't have a problem having it heard. What I expect upon approval in January, it'll go to the full Appropriations Committee, chaired by Chairman Jay Trumbull, and that's where the real fight will occur, like it always does every year. But the matching funds are very important. The next bill is House Bill 4277, which is a Wekiva Springs Road project. That's another $500,000 project. with a 4-to-1 county match. So we're getting even more likely and favorable when those matching funds. Again, 1-year non-recurring money. This has been referenced to a different committee, the Infrastructure and Tourism Committee, that is chaired by J.R. Williamson. I've had a conversation with him about the importance of this for Seminole County and also communicated with the staff. The third bill that I filed on behalf of Seminole County is House Bill 4279. That's the E.E. Williamson Road Project. That is a $1 million appropriation request with a 7-to-1 match from the county. So now we're talking what the legislature wants to hear. Oftentimes people think that there's some set amount of money that each county gets or municipality based on general revenue, and then we get our share. Really doesn't work that way. What the state wants to do is partner with counties and municipalities, nonprofits, so that general revenue that the state is collecting through sales tax is being spent to have the most return on investment and the most impact. And I think we've got some good ones, this one in particular with a 7-to-1 match, and again to the Infrastructure and Tourism Committee. We're going to have a very interesting 2022 session. 2021 was interesting because of COVID. 2022 is going to be interesting because of not COVID, and people are flocking to Tallahassee because without good public input, without the relationships and people being able to come up and advocate for their issues. I could just tell you, 2021, we were missing that. You just don't get everything you need through Zoom. So now that the Capitol is open, people are traveling, there's a lot more folks come up, and I encourage you and the public to continue to come up. I got a new swanky office because the speaker promoted me, so please come visit me in the Capitol building, 317, or room 317. But as you probably know, the 800-pound gorilla for the 2022 legislative session is redistricting. That is going to consume a lot of the bandwidth of the session. We've also got to pass a budget. In Florida, we have to pass a balanced budget, and no matter, thankfully, Florida's economy is open. Sales tax revenues are far exceeding expectation, so there is going to be money to be allocated across the different silos, and ours are in different silos here, and I'm confident we'll be competitive for that money towards the end. And those are the two main things that I think we'll work on this year, but please come up and don't be a stranger. I mean, everybody's got my cell phone. I'm probably the easiest person to find, politically in Seminole County anyway on legislative matters, because this is my full-time job. Although there's 13 David Smiths in Seminole County, but you can find me, and happy to help with anything, and be happy to answer any questions from the commission.
Thank you, Representative. I will tell you, even though there's 13, you're number one, especially with these appropriations. And I want to thank you for your hard work. To coordinate with us, it's always best to go through the appropriate staff person, and that would be one of our deputy county managers, Tricia Johnson, and Tricia's in the back there. If you need anything from us or staff, please coordinate with Ms. Johnson, and she'll be more than happy to get that information to you. Is there any questions from the board? Commissioner?
Not to contradict, but you have my cell number. Please call me. Or Tricia. Tricia's delightful.
I meant from the staff perspective.
Tricia's delightful. I want to thank you as the chairman of the Board of Trustees at Seminole State. What everyone in this room likely doesn't know is that Representative Smith spent an entire morning with us last week at a joint work session between the Seminole State College and Seminole County Public Schools. And it was a wonderful opportunity to have you there with us. I want to thank you again publicly for your time. We talked mostly about workforce and economic development and the ways that we can partner together and the way that the state can help us in that effort, because we really have the same goals in mind and have to get on the same page. So I want to thank you again for your support and for spending so much time with us. Thank you.
Happy to. And considering I'm running a $1 million appropriation for Seminole State, another one for some maintenance, and a $3 million appropriation request for Seminole County Schools to double the size of their nursing program. And we all know there's a nursing shortage in Florida, so I'm happy to lift my end of the log and work with everybody to better Seminole County.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner?
Yes, Representative, it was good to see you again. Saw you in Tallahassee just recently. You know that as there have been for quite a while, an assault on local government when it comes to preemptions and against home rule. And I'm just going to ask you once again to please, because this is one thing that we'll all be watching, please help be a hero in stopping these unnecessary preemptions on local government. You all just had a special session railing about federal government coming down and giving you mandates. And I can just tell you, bills like 620, which our own attorney has called the worst bill he has ever seen, is coming through the process and will cost our taxpayers millions of dollars, unwanted and unnecessary dollars that we would have to spend. And also on school boards, there's another bill, 706, that's trying to do away with district concurrency and make it county-wide. And these things are, going to be difficult issues for us to handle, and things that the state government really has no need to be part of. So I appreciate very much if you would be a watchdog for that.
Anyone else? Commissioner Herr?
David, I'd just like to thank you for the very, very rare quality of being a much better listener than speaker. You are amazing in the sense that you listen to everything we say, you retain it the next time we talk, and it's not about what you say or how you say it, it's about how you listen and get stuff done. You really, really are inspirational, and we cannot say thank you enough.
You're welcome.
And yes, I heard that, and it didn't come out right. I heard Tricia laugh at me from the back of the rooms. Just for the record, I can hear you back there.
You talk very well as well.
You do speak very well.
Yeah.
Commissioner Zimbow, any comments?
Merry Christmas, sir.
Merry Christmas, Jay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Representative, thank you very much for your time, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Okay, this time we're going to go to proclamation awards and presentations. We're going to jump over the business spotlight for a moment. We're going to be doing the first proclamation. It's going to be presented by Commissioner Constantine. Commissioner?
Thank you very much, and I'll move its approval. It is a rather long one, so bear with me, please, everyone. But that's only because the gentleman is a great American. Seminole County Board of County Commissioners proclaiming the United States Army Private First Class Jarrett Porter, Seminole County's December 2021 Veteran of the Month. Whereas the brave men and women of our Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Space Force demonstrate a resolute spirit and unmatched selfishness, reminding us there are few things more American than giving ourselves to make a difference in the lives of others. And whereas throughout our country's history, generations of service members have answered the call to leave their families, their jobs, and put their fortunes and futures and even their lives on the line to valiantly defend our nation. And whereas for many service members the sacrifice has ended in permanent injury or death, yet their spirit remains in a continued preservation of our freedoms and the promise of liberty. And whereas there are more than 30,000 living veterans in Seminole County who served our nation in times of peace and war, and by their service keep America strong. And whereas Private First Class Jarrett Porter joined the Army in 1967 and served at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, Fort Gordon, Georgia, the Republic of Vietnam, Aberdeen Proving Ground, and Maryland throughout 1969. And whereas Private First Class Jarrett Porter served as an Armored Intelligence Specialist, Supply Clerk, and Combat Convoy Truck Driver in Company M, 3rd Squadron, 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment in the Republic of Vietnam, where his duties involved planning offensive and defensive operations while transporting personnel and supplies in enemy-controlled territory. His heroic actions led to the award of the Vietnam Service Medal and the Purple Heart Medal, a solemn distinction confirming that a service member has greatly sacrificed themselves while in the line of duty. And whereas Private First Class Jarrett Porter has dedicated the last 30 years of his career to working in the medical industry, specifically dedicating his efforts to maintaining specialized surgical equipment designed for glaucoma surgeries. And whereas Private First Class Jarrett Porter has shared 53 years of marriage and together with his wife raised 2 outstanding children. And whereas Private First Class Jarrett Porter has brought great credit and distinction upon himself, the United States Army, his country, and Seminole County. Now therefore be it proclaimed that we, the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, Florida, express the gratitude, admiration, and respect for Private First Class Jarrett Porter for his outstanding service to the United States Army and the residents of Seminole County. Be it further proclaimed that this proclamation be presented to Private First Class Jarrett Porter along with our sincere congratulations and recognition as Seminole County's Veteran of the Month.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Commissioners?
Mr. Mr. Porter, would you please step forward?
Thank you. Our next presentation is going to be from Bike Walk Central Florida. Can we hear from that staff, please?
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Emily Hanna. I am the Executive Director of Bike Walk Central Florida, and I am here today to update you on your pedestrian safety program, Best Foot Forward. So as a reminder to our commission and also for those of you in the audience who are unfamiliar with the Best Foot Forward program, the program looks at trying to change the culture of drivers and how they respect and treat people walking in our community. And so the thought process is if we could educate more drivers on the state's driver yield law, that more pedestrians would feel comfortable using those crosswalks, and therefore we would increase safety in our neighborhoods. And we do that through a 4E approach through education, engineering, enforcement, and evaluation. And in Seminole County, last fiscal year, we held 2 enforcement operations in 3 details, which issued 53 warnings and citations. And we educated at 27 different events and touched 4,700 people and distributed 2,200 material with information on our program. But your program is a part of a region-wide effort for pedestrian safety, and so when we combine everyone's numbers, we held 4 high-visibility enforcement operations last year, totaling 40 details and issuing almost 700 warnings and citations. We attended 132 different events, educating 12,000 people, and distributing a little less than 13,000 educational materials. But of course, the big bang for the buck in the program is the media placements, is the number of media that pick up our message and share that with a greater audience. And we had 320 of those placements last year, which created an earned media value of a little over $1 million. And that put about 14 million eyeballs on our education message. And for engineering, we touched 9 different crosswalks we monitored in the program, 4 of those which were enforced. You should know that 3 of those are school crossings, so very important crossings in our program, and 5 of those are trail crossings. And we educated. One of the educations that we were able to do was go to the virtual bus driver safety education that you put on to your Seminole County school bus drivers, and we taught them the state yield law and reminded them to look out for little pedestrians. And we enforced with your wonderful motor unit. Thank you to Major Deputy Woods and his team. They do a fantastic job during our enforcement evaluations. And we were able to do some safety improvements as well. We looked at all the crosswalks in the program, identified which ones needed additional signing and stripage, and then also looked at some of those trail crossings, both from the pedestrian point of view and also from the cyclist point of view, because we know there's multiple users on those trails. And overall, throughout the entire program, we've educated or handed out 10,000 warnings and citations to drivers at 504 different enforcement details, monitoring a total of 207 crosswalks across the 3-county region. And we have done over 671 presentations and educating on pedestrian safety. And here is your Best Foot Forward Coalition. There are over 30 members of this region-wide pedestrian safety effort. This is one of the largest grassroots pedestrian coalitions in the country, and you guys are a part of that. So thank you for continuing to be a part of the Best Foot Forward program and always putting your best foot forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. I'd like to ask the board, are there any questions? I see none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next presentation is going to be for the ISO for Seminole County Fire Department. I'd like to ask the fire chief. Chief?
Good morning, Chairman, Board. Matt Kinley, Interim Fire Chief, Seminole County Fire Department. We're here to celebrate our new ISO 1 classification. I'd like to thank Mike Morash from ISO for attending, and will be part of doing the presentation after we show a short video.
Seminole County Fire Department is officially ISO 1 rated.
It's trucks, it's people, it's water supplies, it's response times, it's comm centers, it's GIS layers and hydrants. There's all kinds of different aspects to it, but it very much puts us in the top tier within the country.
The Insurance Services Office, or ISO, evaluates more than 45,000 fire departments across the nation. ISO Class 1 rating makes Seminole County one of only 10 counties nationwide with this esteemed distinction, the 3rd county in the state of Florida.
The best rating a fire department gets, and there's very few county fire departments in the nation that have the ISO Class 1 rating. So yeah, it's a huge source of pride for me. I know it's a big source of pride for the people in the field, and it's great to come to work knowing that the citizens and the county has given us the support we need.
The ISO determination is based upon many different aspects of a department, from equipment to training, staffing, station locations, and facilities. But one of the largest factors is all about water.
Probably the most important part that we need to put out fires.
Every creditable water supply or fire hydrant across the county are inspected and tested during the process. And for those properties beyond 1,000 feet of a hydrant, an alternative water supply needs to be provided to reach ISO 1 rating.
You can't have the fire department do so great here and then your water part of it is so low here. It's really a team effort between the fire department and the water side. And the flip side is you can't have this wonderful water system if you don't have a great fire department and the engines and the units to take that water feed to the citizens.
Even though the small size of Seminole County, there are some pretty big areas, especially in our Geneva area, that don't have any kind of water supply, meaning hydrants or anything of that nature. So we have to find those other ways to get it, whether through the lakes, the rivers, the personal ponds that are on property, to get that stuff. And when there is one hydrant, for example, in Geneva, we have to be able to flow it from that hydrant and get water to the furthest point in Geneva.
That can be done a variety of ways, from tanker shuttles to laying long hose supply lines to turbo drafting on natural bodies of water. This means Seminole County is even more effective with new equipment, apparatus, and training designed for alternative water supply needs.
There is an incident or a call where a resident's house is not within 1,000 feet of a hydrant, we can provide that water. We become the credible water source then, and we no longer need necessarily that hydrant.
The ISO 1 rating, a collaborative effort and a huge deal for our county that is home to nearly 500,000 individuals.
As our community grows and as our population increases, so will the need to maintain our services at that ISO Class 1 level. So we'll have to make sure that we are purchasing the apparatus we need. We're opening the fire stations that are going to need to be opened. And most importantly, we're going to maintain the training regimen that has been put in place by becoming the ISO Class 1.
The citizens of Seminole County should be very proud of their fire department, their Board of County Commissioners, and everyone involved in achieving this rating. It really exemplifies what a great fire department that we have in Seminole County. So that was a quick snapshot of really years, if not decades, of hard work. This department's been around for 1 year longer than I've been alive. And that in reality is just a blink in the eye of a fire department. And for us to get to where we've come is quite an accomplishment. So we're going to do a presentation. Mike Morash from ISO, who is the manager of ISO Community Hazard Mitigation, is going to come up and go through some PowerPoints to show you how we got to where we're at. Then I'm going to come in and just show you some more of the effort and where we're going. Mike Morash.
Thank you, sir. And good morning, Commissioner, Chairman. Good morning. So I like to say that first off, the hard work that this county put into becoming a Class 1 is outstanding. The group of people that were put together to bring this task forward and present it to ISO was a great group of folks, great group of folks to work with. Top notch, I can say that. So the ISO process and going through the process, right click, is a pretty difficult one in the scheme of looking at the whole of all the pieces we have to look at. So when we're in the field, we have representatives that go to communities. And we're looking at about 46,000 communities across the country that we have to actually go in and we look at the fire protection for. And there's components of which we look at that added score at the end of the day. The components that and when you look at the components and the overall score, there's a point difference of 10 points between each class. So you have a class 10, which means that it's a fire department that's not really operating that good, or there's properties outside of a certain distance. Then you have the class 1, like Seminole County is now, who really is showing that they're the best of the best to provide a service, and that's top. So when you go through the process, we measure against different states and different areas of how they sit. Florida sits very well overall when it comes to Class 1s. We're looking at 43 departments in the state of Florida alone who have become Class 1s. That's a great achievement for this state. It shows that the state has done a great job in fire protection, and I give a lot of credit to the leaders of the state, as well as the county boards and everything else that invest in the communities. So when ISO comes in to look at a community, the community is responsible to put together the data that we need to show where we're going. And we measure the communications centers, we measure the water supply, as well as the fire department. And once we look at those pieces, we put it together and come up with a score, and then we look at the community risk reduction, which I feel is a big benefit in the overall scheme, because it adds a lot of shows what efforts the community has put forth into the project itself, and the level of reducing the fire risk in the community itself as well. So when we look at communications, we look at the communications center, we look at the telecommunicators or the dispatches on how they operate, as well as the methodology of which the calls come out to the members of the fire department. And overall, Seminole County did very, very well in this section. They scored a perfect 10 points out of 10 that are available. That's outstanding. Not many departments are able to achieve that score. And in a chart like this, you see, how we measure against peer groups, state groups, and nationwide. And if you look, that's great. I mean, they got perfect score in each of the categories. And again, that's the investment that's made from the board into the agency. We look at the fire department, we look at various pieces in the fire department, as the video has shown. We look at the apparatus, the training, to the SOPs that are in place for the operations. And when you look at these sections, each of them, again, the department did very, very well when it comes to engine companies, the pump capacity they're able to supply, the ladder of service, how they compare to others in the country, the deployment analysis, how quickly and their ability to respond to fires, the personnel, how well they scored in personnel when you look at across the country and state again, and the operational considerations, and that boils down to how well and organized they are in plans. We look at the water supply again, how well they did in water. And that water, is not only including the pressurized system, but it's the ability to deliver water by alternative means. That's not an easy task. A lot of communities attempt this. They do not succeed in this process. Seminole did succeed in that operation by showing us they can not only deliver it by the tanker shuttles, but they're able to do those long hose lays. And that's a great, great achievement in that process. As well as we look at the hydrants across the county, how well the inspections are being done on these hydrants, and making sure there's a flow testing process in place to ensure that there's credible flow coming out of the hydrants at all times to protect against it. And at the end, once we get these points, we look at community risk reduction, how well the fire inspection and the adoption of codes are put in place. We look at the public safety education process of it, as well as the fire investigation process. Again, overall, very well done. They scored very high points in each of these sections. And again, it's the investment that's made in the fire protection service in your area. So overall, at the end of the day, the county scored 91.67 out of the 105.5 possible points. Great score. It gets them to Class 1. And again, Chief, at this time, I'd like to congratulate you, your staff, the chairman and the board on becoming an ISO Class 1 and a member of the ISO Class 1 family that we have. Congratulations.
So very exciting. And so I'm going to go through just where we've come from. So we identified, we've been a Class 2 for a long time now, after coming from a Class 3. And talking with Chief Kaiser, who was the very first fire chief of the department who's in the audience, we were at 10 a long time ago, which is not great. So we identified the points that we needed, and we started to put in the efforts with water supply and tanker shuttles, water being a big part of it. You saw fit to make an investment in tankers. We added a tanker out at Station 43 in Chuliota, have a tanker on order for Station 13, which should be arriving soon, which we got some credit for that. One of the bigger ones was long hose lays. We trained and demonstrated our ability to supply water through hose lines, large diameter hose, up to 3,800 feet. very long ways. That now stretches out that footprint of a fire hydrant almost 3 times what is normally looked at. A lot of efforts in training. We have always been, we're known as a training fire department. We just did not do the best job at documenting it. So we've put a lot of efforts into some electronic documenting systems, making sure that we're doing training in the right place on the right issues. That got us a lot more points. Pre-incident plans, going around and checking out all the different target hazards and areas, and getting that plan in place before we get to the fire, and demonstrating that to ISO. Communication center, I mean, what more can I say about that? Now, to add into that, again, another thing that the county has saw fit to invest in was a new CAD. Created a lot more opportunities with that new technology to dispatch in different ways. With the pre-alerting, we went away from getting all of the information and sending the perfect amount of units and people to every call to, okay, it's a fire, it's a medical, it's one of these specific ones, and getting a unit going out the door immediately. We can add everybody else on after that. That gets somebody there to get water on the fire, to start CPR as quickly as possible. Also looking at the batch list from ISO, and you'll say, what's the batch list? That's those buildings that have been identified by ISO and the insurance carriers that utilize them, of the buildings that need a certain amount of fire flow and water protection systems in the area. We were able to go out and really take a look at all of those. We touched every hydrant, either virtually or in person. Again, more things. Ladder service. We've always been deficient in ladder service. Again, another thing that we saw fit to fund was putting in Quint 34 into place. That added a tower ladder out in an area that has sorely needed one for a very long time. Of course, we have Station 39 is going to be built, and Tower 39 is going to occupy out there later in the future, but that got us those points now. Hose clamp, something very simple, a very simple piece of equipment, the one piece of equipment we didn't have on our truck, which lost you a fraction of a point, but that point then translates into our deployment, and on every call that we're losing more and more points off of every unit. So we put the hose clamp on and we got all the points. The water purveyors, our fire marshal has been a pit bull with all the water purveyors and getting the needed information from them and making it easier for us to get it into the future. Community benefit. So this is going to be the most interesting to everyone that's watching on TV and in the audience. So this is our current ISO classification of a 2. You see the green areas, that's 2. Yellow areas, it's a 2Y, which is really an 8. And the red areas, which are anywhere from a 10W to a 10. Our new classification, you see the colors don't really change, but now all the green is a 1. And the yellow area is not quite a 1 yet, until we do the long hose lays, tanker shuttle operations, showing that we can supply the water, not only the apparatus and personnel to those areas, but the water. Water is the big deal. So now all of those areas within Seminole County are going to be a Class 1. That's, I believe, 139,000 parcels, homes. The ones going from an 8 to a 1 is around 12,000 parcels, homes. Big change. And the next question will be, well, what about the red? So when you look at the red, and if you can see down in the lower left-hand corner, all the hash marks with the red, which is the vast majority of that, are really state and county lands, not where there are homes at. There are still a couple of pockets of red that are potential for homes to be built. Very small amount, reduced it tremendously. So next steps. So we've already taken a lot of the next steps. we have towers on order. We have another tanker that's going to be arriving. Personnel, which is a big part of ISO. We were able to get funding, federal funding for the 30 SAFER grant positions. So we'll have 4-person engines, tower, in the areas where we get our most fires. We hope to be able to show in 3 years the significant impact that has had on our ability to respond effectively to the fires. We have the equipment on the way. I know something was talked about at a previous board meeting, and the fire marshal has been working diligently on sending out the requests to the water purveyors for all of their information, which is enforceable, so that we can get all of that from them, along with working with them on extending lines, identifying areas that may have the, I believe, 12-ish hydrants out of the entire county that aren't given quite that right flow that we need. Increasing our aerial capabilities. We got Quint 13 that's going to be coming in very soon out in the Altamont area. And just continue on with our increased community risk reduction. I think you've noticed the heightened level of our presence in the news, on social media, and everywhere that we can possibly get the community involved. Property owners' next steps, to look at whether or not this does have an effect on them, because this has some potential effects on their insurance. Nothing's guaranteed. It depends on their insurance carrier. Obviously, some have a bigger change than others, going from an 8 to a 1, but we would ask that they go to our website at www.seminolecountyfl.gov/ISO. If you pull the agenda up online, you can click right on that. That'll take us to the website where you can put in your information, and we can get you the letter to give to your insurance company to see if there's any kind of savings for you. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to open it to the board. Commissioners? Commissioner Zimba will come right down the line.
Thank you, and congratulations, and thank you all for all your hard work for the men and women. And this is where government's place should be, is public safety, and this is a great accomplishment for our community as pertains to public safety. One question, one of our ladder trucks was recently involved in a collision. What's the status of that ladder truck, if we know?
So it will be heading to the manufacturer here very soon. Preliminary estimates are that we're looking at 3 to 4 months to get it returned. Luckily, we're pretty robust with our spare apparatus. We have 2 spare towers, so we just put one of those right into place as the frontline unit, which is the same. It's not the same year, but it's the same type of truck, so the same service. We hope to get that back very soon.
Great. Well, thankfully, for those who weren't aware, there was a out-of-control vehicle that went up and over a curb and actually was airborne when it hit the tower. Fortunately, our firefighters were not significantly hurt.
I give the driver a tremendous amount of credit for that. He saw the car coming, and they were going to get hit in the cab, and he gunned it, and it hit us in the pump panel, which bad spot, but much better spot than hitting our crew.
Exactly. Great. Well, thank you all again very much for your consideration and your attention, and watching you all lay 3,800 feet of hoses is really an event to watch how strenuous and how hard the men and women work for the department. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Herr?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Congratulations to you and the entire team. We may have an opportunity here for communication within the insurance industry with the distribution system. We could probably determine where the local agencies lie and get communication out to them from the county so that they can be proactive with their customers. It would certainly benefit the business to be proactive with their customer, and it would benefit the end user. I know this is hard to believe, but most of our citizens don't watch these meetings, and I support them not watching these meetings.
For good reason.
So we may need other ways to get this message out, and I would say the insurance distribution system is very well seated in terms of taking care of their clients if we provide them with the information.
So on that point, We're obviously driving people to the website. That's our primary point of communication. Economic development is working on the communication to the business community, and I would like to thank David Johnson from the property appraiser. He's been gracious enough and his whole team to allow us to put in a mailer into the homestead exemption renewals, so that we will have documents going out with that, so that'll hit all of the residents.
Terrific, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Lockhart?
I'll echo the congratulations and highlight again, and I think you all said it at the very beginning of the video, this is truly a team effort, and as exciting as it is for your part of the team, and again, congratulations, just the fact that this is something that stretches across almost the entire organization that made this a reality, I think is something that we really can be proud of. And thank you to the county management team for helping to drive that and support that, because that cross-departmental communication and coordination is so critical, not just to this, but pretty much everything we do in this county for our citizens. So thank you all for being so collaborative.
I think that's a key point. The citizens demanded it. You heard them. Funded it. County management, along with the fire department, and as you said, this is really every department within the county. We need facilities. We need fleet. We need every department. We have our own water purveyor in the county. All of that is a huge team effort, and we could not have done this without everyone. And I couldn't be prouder of the firemen. They really stepped up to the challenge. And women. Well, that's a general term.
Oh. Just making sure we were covered.
Absolutely. They really stepped up to the challenge, getting out the door, getting to the calls, and mitigating those emergencies.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Constantine?
Chief, I do want to congratulate you, as everyone has, not you, but every firefighter that's out there, and everybody in all the other departments that touch this. When we made the difficult decision a number of years ago, Commissioner Delory and I remember that very long meeting where a lot of people were concerned about what we had to do to get here. And at that time, the fire chief and the firefighters all committed themselves to the fact that, as we did, that if we do this, we're going to get this this designation. And we even said that this, because of what could happen with insurance rates, will easily mitigate any increase. In fact, would probably save our taxpayers money in the long run. But more importantly, it will save lives. So I want to thank you very much, and it's a general thank you to everyone, with you as the representative here today. Job well done.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Chief, wow, congratulations. The word doesn't really do justice to the accomplishment you all just achieved. You made comment about one of our past fire chiefs, Chief Kaiser. Chief Kaiser's in the audience. Can you just stand to be recognized, Chief? There's a reason why I wanted him to stand to be recognized, is that our community is extremely close, extremely tight. Chief Kaiser is just a perfect example. He showed up to many different events that we've had here through the years, as well as our past fire chiefs. They all do. It's almost like an organization where once you get in, you can't leave. And I can tell you, I hear from all of them. There's not many of them. And the longevity of our fire chief speaks volumes of our fire department. The continuity, dedication, and the resiliency. I will tell you that I remember past years talking about the radio towers. You know, I'm just rounding numbers. You know, the county had to spend, I think it was $28 million to do that. I think there was 5 towers. To do the training facility off of 419, that was another big dollar item, to take an existing facility and turn it into a training facility. I've heard from so many fire chiefs that are here, that to have a training facility of that caliber in a county this size is unimaginable. And it just goes to show you the level of training that our staff gets and the service that they provide to our citizens. I mean, I'm not going to go through it all, but it's just one year after another that the going up through the ladder from, no pun intended, from an ISO rating of 10 when we first started out to an ISO rating of 1 where we are today. I commend you all. It's not just the leadership, it's the staff, it's the rank and file that actually serve the fire department, that actually serve the citizens of this county, showing up to work every day. And it's not just showing up, it's actually going beyond that level of dedication. And our fire department shows that, proves it, and has now been recognized for it. We cannot thank you all enough for the service of dedication that you have to the citizens of this county. Do you have a question, Chief? Don't mean to put you on the spot. What's next? What can we do better?
Well, obviously, we're at 91 and change, and we want to be at 105.
Okay.
So there's areas that we're moving forward with. I've touched on many of those, working with the water purveyors, increasing our tanker capabilities, and personnel. Those are really the three areas where we can continue to get some significant points. And I was talking with Mike Morash before this, and it's also not losing sight of those little fractions of points everywhere else. So there's a lot of what we're just going to continue to do. We're doing more training. We will continue on in all those areas that we've scored very well in, and we will continue to address those big three areas to get us even to that next level, because 91 is great, we're ISO 1, but like 105.
105 is a lot better, Chief. And the other thing I want to also stress, technically and competency, you're there, but I'll also say that I hear from so many citizens the level of care that you provide to them, and not just in times of emergency, when they come to that firehouse or the items that you actually go and are involved in the community. They feel that they're part of your family as you're part of their family. So hats off to you all. Congratulations. Well-deserved, well-earned.
And that's where we're lucky enough in Seminole County, and having been in Seminole County the majority of my life, we're given big city services, but with that hometown fire station feel.
Absolutely. I can tell you that I sit on a national board, and throughout the country, there's communities that don't even have mutual aid, first response, 800 megawatt radios. I mean, the list goes on, and I'm amazed. And this county has stepped up. You all stepped up more and more times again, so congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we take a photo with you all?
Absolutely.
Can we have the fire department come down, please? Excuse me, Chief.
I was trying to do too many things at once.
Chief, before you leave, you're the present acting fire chief, and you've done a phenomenal job. We'd be remiss if we didn't ask the person who started this off. Chief Kaiser, would you address the board for a moment? It's always good to know where you've come from.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll be eternally grateful for the opportunity to have served this county every day. I'm particularly proud of all the people that came after me, and particularly proud of the county commissioners that followed and hung in there to make this all happen, and the support of the people in the community. It's been wonderful. The first year, I started out with a desk in the corridor of the old courthouse. And the first year, I would only describe as experience is something you gain right after you need it. And we did a lot of that. But we persevered, everyone did, the board. And again, it's been a pleasure and an honor to be part of this organization, the whole county government, fire department, everything. I've been here since I was 15 years old in 1960. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. So thank you, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chief, if you can ask your staff to stay, because there's a couple people who would like to address public comments to the fire department.
Uh-oh.
No, there's nothing bad, it's all good, but I want to make sure that they're heard, that's all. Before we get to that, we are going to go to the business spotlight. We had to jump over that. I'd like to ask staff.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Tricia Johnson, Deputy County Manager. So today's business spotlight's a little different. That's why I'm introducing it. Typically, Thank you, Brian. There's a teaser. Typically, we highlight a business that most folks haven't maybe been as familiar with in our county, and certainly we are all familiar with Hollerback's Willow Tree, but they are celebrating their 20th anniversary and are now the largest restaurant in Seminole County, and the only one right now with a rooftop bar. So we really wanted to bring them back after 20 years to recognize not only what they do for our residents, but also our visitors. They are a very strong tourist attraction. So that's why we're highlighting them today. So Brian, now you're up.
What is Hollerbox and what is Sanford? And I think for me, it really goes back, even though it's cheesy, to Gemütlichkeit. It's a hard word to say, it gets easier the more you drink, but it literally has no translation other than that feeling you get celebrating with friends and family over good food and drink. And that's the experience that we sell and that we try to make sure all of Sanford feels. So Hollerbox has been around for 20 years now. We just celebrated that anniversary in 2021. And it's been a lot of growth and change in that time. I think the core value of us providing that experience and staying true to German culture, but going from a 70-seat restaurant to literally almost 700 is a huge change in how we operate and everything that comes along with that growth process. I have such a huge staff now. We have 146 employees as of right now, and honestly, we could use another 20 more. But I think that right now, focusing on that growth coming out of the pandemic, making sure that we continue to teach that culture to our employees and focus on the guest has been our main driver. But for us, like special events and becoming a destination all throughout the United States as a place where people know you can come here and have a great time. Cheers. I always like it better when other people say it, but I hear it all the time that Hollerbox was a catalyst for putting downtown Sanford on the map. And I feel confident saying that because I've seen Sanford grow and change in 20 years, and I'm so impressed with the progress we've made. And I think it comes from that energy of like, hey, if they can make it, we can make it. And if they're doing this, let's add on to that and have this event. So it's a combination of a lot of efforts, both from the city and other business owners to get us where we are. But that belief and that energy of it can be done, I think started with Hollerbox. Got great plans plans for 2022. So we've got, we're calling it Phase 3 of our construction. So there's some spaces there that are just for us because we are growing, but we also have spaces for our guests. And there's going to be an art gallery space, a rentable conference room with honestly the biggest table I've ever seen in person in my life. So we're excited to have these facilities, again, providing needs. We hear that people want a conference space. We hear that people would like to have some art gallery space. All right, we can do that. So listening to people and providing those things, that all comes back to Gemütlichkeit is what we're all about.
What was that word again?
Gemütlichkeit.
I'd like to introduce CEO of Hollerbach's Willow Tree Cafe, Christina Hollerbach.
We're so honored to be a second-time Business Spotlight, and I think, like Tricia said, it's really cool to kind of watch us grow and change over 20 years and get that big. I'm actually teary-eyed watching the dang video because it's so cool to see how far we've gone. Sorry. But I'd love to hear some questions about the restaurant or the growth of Sanford, anything that you guys want to know about what's going on. I'm happy to talk about it.
All right, we'll start when Commissioner Lockhart.
So I'll buy you some time.
Thanks.
I remember more than 20 years ago when I would push my now 25-year-old daughter in a stroller into Willow Tree Cafe. And I want to tell you, when we heard that there was a family coming in to open up and turn this into a German restaurant, we all kind of looked at each other and said, oh, those poor people. That's just, how is that ever going to work? That just doesn't make any sense.
The lady that sold us to it said the same thing.
Yeah,
like,
well,
if you turn into a restaurant, you're going to fail.
We were all wrong, and you guys absolutely have killed it. And my now 25-year-old and I go in there and drink together and have a great time.
Our wedding over lunch.
That's right. That's right. So thank you for being not just a wonderful employer and great restaurant and place for people to celebrate, but being truly the part of the fabric of our community. You all have invested in so many ways, not just in Sanford, but all across this county. And we're better for it because of you and your family and the team that you've put together.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Herr?
I'll just give a shout out to your mom and dad who thought of it, started it all, passed it on to the second generation, and that's pretty daggum awesome. So congratulations.
And exit strategies are difficult, so.
Yes, they are.
And congratulations to you for navigating that artfully.
They're so excited to and still very heavily involved as an advisory capacity, which has been a really fun transition for us too, to still see them like kind of as the mom and dad of the whole restaurant. I have a lot of employees, especially on the executive and manager level, that have been with us from the beginning, 17 years, 15 years. So my parents really are the parents for everybody, which is really cool to see as well.
We always feel at home there.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Zimbauer?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of this German-American, thank you very much for bringing some of my history to this community many, many years ago, and it certainly is a destination. When we have guests that travel in from outside the country, one of their number one spots they want to go is to the Willow Tree. So thank you very much. You all have done a great job, and thank you for everything you do for the community. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah, we're seeing on average right now almost 7,000 guests a week.
Wow.
Crazy.
Big numbers. Commissioner Constantine?
Congratulations. I couldn't say it any better than my fellow commissioners. Always enjoy being there. Know a lot of people ask me all the time about it wherever I go in Florida. So congratulations.
Thank you. And you've always been a huge supporter of hospitality. I saw you at FRLA as well, just last week.
Thank you.
I just want to echo, job well done. Congratulations. Looking forward to the next 20 years plus.
Thank you so much.
Can't wait to see what you have up next.
Yeah, and I think, that this feeling and this growth is extending everywhere, and not just the restaurant, but we try to make sure other businesses are coming with us and getting on board, and it's really cool to see the development of Sanford. It's come a lot farther than I thought it would, and we've got lots more places to go.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to move to public participation. Prudent to Florida law, the public has the right to be heard on any proposition except from the Board of County Commissioners in acting administrative emergency matters and conducting meetings exempt from Section 286.011 Florida statute. Public comment times on proposal will be 3 minutes for individuals, 6 minutes for group representations. The right to be heard during quasi-judicial hearings is governed by Florida law. The public will provide an opportunity to be heard on non-agenda items at the end of the meeting. Proper decorum will be observed. At this time, I'd like to ask Shani, is there anyone that has a written sheet to be heard?
Yes, we had 2 people who signed up to speak. Mr. Horvath is the first one, followed by Mr. Humphries.
Okay.
That's on the business spotlight, because I did the ISO one too, so.
Doing both right now, sir. You have 3 minutes.
I'm doing economic, then I'm doing the ISO, Mr. Chairman.
You have 3 minutes, sir.
Both of them, or?
You have 3 minutes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to thank Trish Johnson, because I talked to her a few months, John Horvath, 1004 Bradford Drive, Winter Park, Florida. That's a Seminole County park with the Winter Park address. I like to tell people that because they think I'm wondering why I'm here. I'd like to congratulate her. I've been to Hollaback's many times over the years and many other restaurants in this town, and they really helped turn the downtown around, because I remember how it was a few years ago. But what I want to say is I'm glad to see you bringing the highlights of business back in the county, and not just the restaurants, but I want to show you what other businesses are here. She employs, what'd you say, 120 people? You know, that's no small employment base. So that's good for the county, the city, et cetera. And I like to see you show more businesses on your website so people can know what is in this county. I was at the airport at Calno a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about some of the business out there, and I know this county did a thing on the airport propeller facility out there, which is an interesting high-tech company out there, along with many of the others. And then you did the ambulance remanufacturer that was in this county, which is another interesting fact, that not only do we have them remanufacture, but in the neighboring county, they got Wheel Coach down there with a big production facility. So this is always good to know we've got these other businesses here. But we need to let people know what is here in the county, and I don't know if part of your deal is even show some of them, highlight some of the multi-located facilities here, such as a Publix. I mean, they have, 20 stores here? How many people they employ and what they do for the county? So we really need to know what's here in the retail end, but also the manufacturing and the other ends of the growth in this county. I mean, I know what it was like here because my family was in the Grove business, and that was gone in 1981. And when I drive around and remember groves and cow pastures and see shopping centers, apartments, etc., I know it's changed, and it's been amazing what the county has done with economic development. And as I told you at the budget hearing, we're at 470,000 with our census. We're looking at another 100,000 people in the next 20 years. This board and the other boards need to be ready for those next 100,000, along with serving the 470,000 that are here, which means various goods and services. So I will finish the economic part, and I'll flip to the ISO here and go from that.
Mr. Hart, your time is ticking.
I don't have another 3 minutes?
No, sir.
Okay, ISO, I want to congratulate the county on being an ISO. I was a volunteer fireman back in the late 70s, early 70s, and I know what it was like when it was a Class 10, and I'm glad to see that they've done it. And I want to make sure you maintain the ISO 1 rating, because if you don't, you're going to fall back, and we don't need to fall back. And I congratulate the county commission on that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good job.
John, thank you for all the work you've done over the years.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I like this county. It's a good place to live, work, and play. You can see that, so.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Beach, who's next? Who's next to speak?
Mr. Humphries is next. He wanted to speak on a couple of items related to the consent agenda.
Okay. After you give us your name and address, the time will start ticking.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners. My name is Joe Humphreys. I live at 883 Cardinal Point Cove, Sanford, Florida. There's a number of issues that are before you today pertaining to economic development, tourism, and so on. As Commissioner Constantine knows, I spent 10-plus years during 2 successive administrations in Tallahassee helping create and lobby for legislation addressing these specific areas. So I'm very supportive of that. That said, as the old saying goes, there's 2 sides to every coin. And as we've heard today, as we just heard, obviously we're continuing to grow exponentially. And so as we do that, I think we need to make sure that we're providing enough open space. Obviously, there's some of those issues before you today as well, which I certainly support wholeheartedly. I think Commissioner Zembauer probably said it best in a recent Orlando Sentinel article, in that he said, the challenge Seminole County will face in the coming years is protecting the rural areas along with updating the county's land development codes so that new residential subdivisions in urban areas are designed around green spaces. We need to do it wisely and smartly so that we still have areas of open green space, he said. We really learned during the COVID pandemic that people wanted to be outdoors. I knew people would go outdoors, but I had no idea that we would have a 680% increase in use of our trail systems. And as a member of the Parks and Preservation Committee, I can tell you that I've seen it firsthand. And we need to continue to make sure that we are providing those kinds of open spaces. As I told Mr. Durr this morning, yesterday as I drove past the Markham Trailhead, on a Monday morning, it was already very active. People on their bikes, people walking, strollers, dogs, you name it. So we need to continue to provide those kinds of spaces. I spoke with a couple of members of the National Association of Home Builders over the weekend, and they said, yes, it's indeed a long-range change in people's activities, and they're trying to address that. So as we try to continue to protect Florida's natural choice, we need to make sure that we're providing those open spaces for these new residents. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Joe.
Any other requests to speak to the board on consent agenda items?
No, sir.
Okay, before we move on to consent agenda items 4 through 38 and 58 and 57, I'd like to take a 5-minute recess, please. No, I did not.
Just thought you'd like to. Found out that 2 days ago.
Okay, since we have 4 commissioners back, I'd like to reconvene. We're going back to consent agenda, items 4 through 38, and 56 and 57. I'd like to ask County Manager, is there any items on the consent agenda we need to address?
No, sir. You covered the 2 that were at the end.
Okay. Okay, any questions or any commissioner like to pull any of the items? Commissioner Herr?
For separate consideration, I'd like to pull 17, 56, and 57.
Wait, repeat those again, 17?
56 and 57.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have a question, sir.
Commissioner Constantine?
Yes, just a question, but I wouldn't, did anybody else? My question involves, so that we don't have to pull them, we have 3 different items just on consent. They have to do with the golf courses, 5, 28, 35, purchases, transfer operations. The MSBU is later. I just wanted to ask the county manager, it is my understanding that the long discussion that we had at the last meeting where the applicant or the seller was going to participate in the environmental improvement is done with about $225,000 worth of savings?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And the other thing that I wanted to know is with the operation, it is my understanding that in the beginning, of course, people do things, but in the beginning, there will be no jobs of individuals that are working there lost?
Anybody that is working there now has been extended an offer to continue to work there under the new contract.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you very much.
Any other items before we put?
Just another item of note on that matter. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. There has been a closing date confirmed for the 20th, which will be next Monday for both of those properties, which means we will be the proud owners of a operating golf course first thing Tuesday morning, the 21st.
Thank you. Commissioner Zimbow.
Item 5, I desire to pull for conversation.
Okay, item 5.
Well, I tried to stop it with the question.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move for items 4 through 38, 56, and 57 with the exception of, 56, 57, and 17, and 5.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion to the motion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. We'll now turn to item number 5. Commissioner Zimbow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had this pulled for one main reason, to have some discussion with my fellow commissioners. This lies within several districts, my district, Commissioner Delari's district, as well as Commissioner Constantine's district. And of course, this is a decision countywide. So I appreciate the previous support from my fellow commissioners on these matters. These properties shows our commitment to preserving areas throughout our county, which we know as an urban county, as we continue to grow, we continue to lose these green spaces, and we will never, ever be able to replace what we're about to endeavor upon today. So thank each and every one of you. Thank our staff. I want to thank the community for being involved. I want to thank those community leaders who help educate the public. I want to thank those residents who agreed to tax themselves and actually ask the government to tax themselves for part and parcel of getting these green spaces. As we look across the country at some of the large metropolitan areas, you will find that you have houses and apartments and sprawl throughout a community, and you have no park system. You have no areas, green spaces for people to get out and enjoy. And as Mr. Humphreys indicated, we learned that during the pandemic. The price tag sometimes is arguably high, but I will tell you, for parklands, when you look across this country and you try to buy parklands, this is dirt cheap compared to what we would have to pay to ever gain these lands 20, 30, 40 years later. This is a commitment for our community for many, many decades to come. So I appreciate everybody's hard effort. I appreciate our county attorneys being involved, our county management, and everybody through the community. So thank you all very much, and I'll move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? I'm sorry. Commissioner Lockhart.
Yeah. I just would like to say how much I echo some of Commissioner Zimbauer's sentiments. I would like to see us, if we can, in coordination with our Parks and Natural Lands Department, look at a plan for how much we might want to and be able to invest in this type of purchasing in the future. I think we are starting to establish, whether we realize it or not, a presumption on the part of communities that if something is threatened to be developed, we'll just buy it. And while that may be the appropriate route in some cases, it may not be the appropriate route in every case. And so rather than be in a reactionary mode every time somebody decides that they don't want to run a golf course anymore, maybe we ought to look at some of the properties that we are interested in preserving and look at where the space currently is where we own county property that could already be developed into a park, perhaps. I'm hearing it in a lot of conversations when a community is unhappy about a privately owned piece of property going to be developed into appropriately zoned low-density residential. Well, I don't want this housing development built. Why doesn't the county just buy it and make a park? Well, I mean, that can't be that can't be what we do all the time. So if we could maybe have a commitment that will move forward into some type of proactive plan, and I'm looking for Joe Durr, and I see Michael Worsing on the back row. Yeah, Richter, sorry, Joe Durr. I just made Joe Abel and Rick Durr one person. Isn't that fabulous? Sorry.
We are.
At least you get called Joe Dirt.
Joe Dirt, yeah. We've done these master plans, and we've done these types of cataloging initiatives for years, but we need to do something with those now, if we could, and really use it moving forward.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments? Commissioner Zimbauer?
Thank you. Just to follow up, Commissioner Lockhart is absolutely correct, and I would just say there is a time and place for government to consider undertaking such endeavors as we are about to do here today. There are certainly other areas that we have no business in doing so. We continue to hear the conversation, and we see them here in our chambers constantly. I don't want those houses built, but they're surrounded by houses that the people are here telling us they've got theirs, and they don't want the guy that owns the last 5 acres to have theirs. Understood. I agree, concur completely, and not only do we need to have a plan moving forward, but we should be developing a plan to take the inventory we already have and find some connectability, which is what I've tried to push for many years, not only of our park systems, but our trail systems that intertwine with those. Our park people with their master plan have accomplished some of that, but also working with our regional partners, the other counties, and connecting to them so people from Volusia can come to Seminole to Orange, et cetera, et cetera. But I agree completely, 100%.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll call the question at hand, the motion. is to approve. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. We'll now move on to item number 17. Commissioner Herr.
Yes, Chairman, under advice of our attorney, I'd like to abstain from this vote. The City of Winter Park is a client.
Okay. All right, thank you.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval.
Second.
The motion is second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the next item, which is 56. Commissioner Herr?
Yes, while the City of Altamont is not a client, this does fund something for the Sheriff's Office, and so under advice of our attorney, I will be abstaining from this vote as well.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The motion is second. Any discussion?
Yes,
Commissioner
Mr. Chairman,
Constantine?
both of them, was the motion for 56 and 57?
You just did one.
56.
Just 56, thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. We'll now move on to item number 57.
And so 57 is for the Sheriff's Office, and they are a client, and under advice of our attorney, I will be abstaining.
Okay. Commissioner Zimbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to take a moment and thank the Sheriff's Office for taking this on and agreeing to do this mental health awareness and trying to find a way for our community to find answers for mental health rather than just continuing a revolving door of putting people in jail and letting them back out, or sending them to the hospital and letting them back out. The same thing with the opioid addiction issues, as well as all the drug addiction issues that the Sheriff's Office has to deal with. I've had a discussion with our Sheriff's Office comptroller that has assured me that moving forward, there are additional ways for funding after this ARPA money would ultimately work its way through seeding and getting this program off the ground. I think it's a great program that I will be supporting. I understand that there'll be additional strategies deployed for private partnerships. Many of us are aware of those private partnerships that the sheriff has put together, so we commend the Sheriff's Office for that. And with that said, I'll move for approval.
Second.
The motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Mr. Applegate, you'd like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Commissioner Herr will file Commission on Ethics Form 8B for items 17, 56, and 57, and they'll be filed with the clerk for the minutes.
Okay.
Absolutely, they're already prepared.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll now move on to the County Attorney's Report. Mr. Applegate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Recommend you approve item number 39. Is again, as I mentioned at the last meeting, we'll be seeing more of these with the interest rates the way they are. This item is for the Industrial Development Authority revenue bonds for an educational facility, revenue bond in the amount not to exceed $5 million. I'll note for the record that I worked with our bond counsel. We've approved all the documents, and there is no liability in any way for Seminole County.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion for the board. Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. We'll now move on to constitutional officers, item number 40.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Now we're going to regular agenda item number 41. I'd like to hear from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Tricia Johnson, Deputy County Manager. Item 41 considers an agreement with Deloitte Consulting LLP for the county's Jobs Growth Incentive Program. Deloitte is one of the world's leading professional service firms providing broad-based business consulting services in the areas of human capital, strategy, operations, and technology. Deloitte is based in 97 cities with more than 300,000 employees worldwide, 2,400 of whom are in Florida. This project will expand the current Lake Mary Technology Delivery Center located at 901 International Parkway. And this center emphasizes IT consulting services, and the majority of the proposed new positions are on data data processing, and coding. Deloitte intends to create 400 new Seminole County jobs by the end of 2024, with an average annual wage of $70,056, which is 139% of the county's current average annual wage of $50,314. Deloitte is eligible for a JGI in the amount of $1,200 per job for a total of $480,000 in county support. The JGI program, as you know, is performance-based. Incentives are not paid until jobs are created and vested for a period of 2 years. Additionally, the company intends to invest $12,613,841 in construction, renovation, equipment, and lease payments. During our briefing, some of you asked about Deloitte's community involvement. I'd like to follow up on that. Deloitte serves on 2 UCF boards, and last year more than 70 employees were hired from the UCF campus. Deloitte is currently supporting local Boys and Girls Clubs and Empower in Longwood. In addition, Deloitte is engaged in a pro bono project with Tech Sassy Girls, a local not-for-profit in Orlando, to increase STEM opportunities for minority girls. Deloitte also supports Girls Who Code nationally, donating $5 million as part of the company's corporate citizenship efforts. Finally, Deloitte employees volunteer on Impact Day, which is a firm-wide day dedicated to community service, and last year they donated more than 10,000 hours in one day. Additionally, as part of our briefings, we discussed how can Deloitte expand their reach further locally. The Orlando Economic Partnership and I are going to coordinate discussions with Seminole State College and Seminole County Public Schools to see if Deloitte can work with them with respect to their cybersecurity and tech programs to expand that employee pipeline with local students. And finally, the Orlando Economic Partnership is working with JP Morgan Chase on a program that would focus on cybersecurity efforts, and we are talking to Deloitte about involving them in that partnership to see if they can also expand their reach locally. With that, I ask for your approval of this agreement, which is between Seminole County Government and Deloitte Consulting LLP in the amount of $480,000 for the creation of 400 jobs at an average annual wage of $70,056. I certainly am happy to address your questions. Additionally, Casey Barnes with the Orlando Economic Partnership is here, and Bert Naquin with the local Deloitte office is also in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to the commission, I'd like to ask the public, is there any public input? I see no written requests. Is there any public input? Seeing none, we'll close public input. I'd like to ask the staff, and the Board of County Commissioners for their input and/or direction. Commissioner Zimbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move approval for item 41, Deloitte Consulting LLP and Seminole County Job and Growth Incentive Agreement.
Second.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Lockhart.
I want to thank OEP and Deloitte for the time that you spent with me discussing this and other opportunities to partner in the future. I'm going to tell you, I hearkened back a little bit to some of my school board days, and forgive me for always looking at things through that lens, but I'm going to share very candidly some of the things that I shared with you all directly in that Zoom meeting. I feel like now that Deloitte has been in our community, in Seminole County, and let me just say, UCF is wonderful and Orlando is wonderful, but we're Seminole County, and these are Seminole County taxpayer dollars. We have an opportunity with your presence here to do a lot of wonderful things. And over the last 7 years that you've been here, I would have hoped that we would have seen you as an organization be more woven into the fabric of our community. It's a little bit like when you see a kid in school and they have all of this incredible potential. You know, they've got a great IQ, they've got great family support, they've got a 4.0, and you just can't motivate them and get them to apply to college because you know they could do so much with that extra push. And I feel like Deloitte is our 4.0 student with a high IQ that has so much that they can bring to the table here in this community. And I'm just not seeing the real engagement and relationships being built that I would like to see. And I'm not sharing this. This should not come as a surprise to any of you because I was very candid about that in our conversation. I feel like this has become a transactional relationship rather than a true, how do we support one another? How do we, as Seminole County and our community and our educational institutions, provide you the workforce that you so desperately need? And in return, how can Deloitte provide the relational collaboration that we as an organization and all of our institutions are so happy to provide and give? This is a very hard decision for me because I do believe that this JGI is transparent. I do believe it's something we can hold them accountable to. It's all of the things on paper, transactionally, that I believe a JGI could be. But at this point in time in our relationship, I would like to see a lot more. I think the citizens of Seminole County deserve to have these dollars translate into more than just a general ROI in return for jobs, but a true corporate partner for Seminole County. And I'll hear that we're going to be working with Seminole State and Seminole County Public Schools, and I love that. I wish we were sitting here today having the opportunity to talk about as being in the rearview mirror after 7 years instead of looking forward to maybe doing it in the future. We have 500,000 citizens, but we are a very, very small town. And I've talked with heads of foundations, chambers of commerce, and they have a hard time finding who the contacts for Deloitte would be to have you all sit and participate in some of these roundtable discussions and be really a part of the fabric of the community that I would like to see. Now, I may very well be only one board member who feels this way, and if that's the case, we'll find that out in the vote. But I hope that if this does pass, that we'll see a significant difference in the level of participation on the part of Deloitte in Seminole County.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Constantine?
I hate repeating what other members have already done. We all do that quite often. But I'm not going to repeat what Commissioner Lockhart has said. I also had meetings on separate occasions, both Deloitte and OEP, on my concerns, and of course, and Tricia Johnson on my concerns about this particular project. All the members know that I have put out, because I was one of the prime sponsors of this program in Tallahassee, and I put out what I felt to be an economic incentive 10-point checklist a long time ago, which many of them have now been incorporated into what we do. And by the way, and thank you, Ms. Johnson, for always providing that every time we have one of these. And that was to bring people here, primarily bring people here. Well, the fact of the matter is that Deloitte is here, and I do concur with some of the things that Commissioner Lockhart had said, but I'll also bring up some other things. The city, we want to be partners with our cities, and the city in question here, the city that also participated in the original incentive, is not participating this time. And I think it's extremely important when the direct beneficiary, the most direct beneficiary, the city of Lake Mary, participate, and they have declined to do that. I also believe that in this time that we're struggling with COVID and new cases coming up, that putting nearly $500,000 into one corporation, when we already have given $1.9 million to bring them here, concerns me. It is a perception problem, but a perception problem because we're all struggling. And I think the third part of this is that Deloitte is already here. I think they have become a fabric of the community, and I don't think that we have to continue to pay for them to stay here. I think the jobs that they are looking at today are jobs that are best suited for the corporate headquarters they have in Lake Mary, and that the students from SSC and UCF have become a valuable asset to them to be hired for these jobs. So these additional 400 jobs to the ones they already have are not really going anywhere. I firmly believe that that's, we're playing against ourselves when they say that potentially those 400 jobs would go to Arizona or they'll go here. This is where they not most likely, this is where they belong. I believe that they're happy here, and I respect the request because it's something that they have the right to do. But I believe at this time, for those three reasons, that it's best suited that we keep that money for other incentive potential from other companies that might be struggling also. I don't really think Deloitte is struggling, and I don't really think Deloitte is looking to leave Seminole County. So I think this $500,000 would be best spent elsewhere.
Thank you. Commissioner Herr.
I look at this entirely differently. As somebody that's worked in a Fortune 100 company, the decision to put 400 new positions in a location is a competitive decision. We are competing with other areas. They don't have to put the 400 positions here. To have 400 positions that are 39% above the community average in wages is a gift to the community and a very fine investment of taxpayer money. We don't take a loss on that. As a matter of fact, the return is pretty expeditious. So it's a performance-based program that encompasses a $12 million investment in the community, and in my full year on this board, I haven't seen anything like this. The fact that it's an existing organization in the community, from my perspective, should not taint it, because it doesn't mean that because they exist, they have thousands of locations throughout the world, and probably hundreds of them would compete for these 400 positions, including neighboring communities. So I'm all in. I would tell you, though, I think Commissioner Lockhart's comments with regard to supporting Seminole County are important. We are different from Orange County. We are very proud to be different from Orange County. Sometimes we should be a little less proud to be different from Orange County, because that is a fine county as well. But I think Deloitte is actually missing a great opportunity to have their employees create a little more stickiness with the organization by virtue of being more entrenched in the local community. And I say that from the position of an employer who has done that with her employees here, and now we've seen people that have stayed for 20 years with the organization because we facilitated that and encouraged it to be a local gift, not a gift outside of the community in which they live. And I realize they don't all live here. But I am highly supportive. I think this is a fine investment on behalf of the taxpayers for higher pay wages in a fine industry that is supported by our local school system, our college system, our state college system. And while we may have a little bit of fine-tuning to do, I'll call it fine-tuning to do in terms of getting you a little more entrenched here, I am appreciative of the jobs that you brought and the economic development that you've brought to the area already.
Commissioner Zimbauer.
Thank you very much. Very well put, Commissioner Herr, and I'll try not to ditto many of those comments. I don't tend to look at this through a narrow lens of just Seminole County. I mean, the sooner we realize we are a region, we are an Orlando MSA. There are many people who work and reside in the Orange County area, Osceola County, that are fine residents of this county. They're taxpayers of this county. We don't have the luxury, unfortunately, to be in a Midwest type location where we can stand on our own, do our own thing. There is a time and place for that. When it comes to employment centers, it's typically geographic through an MSA area. Orlando, we're tied to. Some of us like that, some of us don't like that. But at the end of the day, I'm neither obtuse to the vision that of lens that some people look at this. The trickle-down effect of economics of this package are tremendous. It benefits our schools, it benefits our existing business owners, and these are the employees we want to thrive in our community. UCF students from UCF come from many places, not only in this county, but surrounding counties and across this entire state, the entire country, and for that matter, the world. We have many people in UCF that reside in this county. Many professors have chosen to live here in Seminole County. But again, I'm not going to go back through what Commissioner Herr has so eloquently detailed, and I will be supporting this. And I do want to thank them for their continued support of the Boys and Girls Club, not only locally, but nationally.
Before we move on to all the rest of the follow-up comments, I'd like to add my comments, if I may. I support this. In my discussion with the applicant, Deloitte, one of the things that they talked to me about, and I've witnessed it, the success of them being here is our success. The success that they talk about is the product that we actually have of our students and our workforce, not just at Seminole State, not just UCF, also Valencia. They pride themselves that they're so successful because of our success of educating people. They've seen the job growth in this area that is second to none. With the pandemic that's hitting us and the jobs that are on the line, I think this is a good thing because it is not giving out money. It's actually they have to earn it. And with that, I would be supporting this motion. And I'd like to encourage them to take all the comments here to heart and look forward to seeing them in the future for more jobs. Commissioner Lockhart?
Sure.
Then I'll call the question.
Yeah. Oh, you're calling the
No, I
question?
said Commissioner Lockhart, then I'll call the question. Please.
Okay. Okay, so I think that there are a lot of wonderful companies that have chosen to be here in Seminole County. Many of them have chosen to be in the International Parkway Corridor, and they've brought hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jobs, and they are wonderful corporate citizens, and we didn't give them a dime to be here. And they recognize the value of having their businesses here, and we don't have to pay them to stay. And I think I'm not going to name names, but I'm thinking of some right off the top of my head who are highly invested in this community, and they continue to invest in this community because they realize what a value this community is for their organization. And again, we have not paid them a dime. I typically have been supportive of these types of initiatives. I am hoping that my fellow commissioners will hear that as the chairman of the Board of Trustees at Seminole State College, we are not experiencing the type of collaboration and partnership that many of you think is happening on this dais. So I'm hopeful that when this passes, there will be something in the motion that would indicate that there will be some type of expectation that that collaboration will actually occur.
And, Mr. Chairman, just to not belabor, I'm happy Deloitte's here. I think that they're going to stay here one way or another. I share Commissioner Lockhart's concern about the fact that there are a lot of great companies that are here, continue to expand, continue to give jobs to Seminole County, Seminole School System, Seminole State, UCF. And I do believe that I'm glad they're going to stay here. I see how the vote's going to take place. This is not against Deloitte. This was a situation where I just felt that after we spent $1.9 million and they're embedded in this county, I didn't feel we needed to continue to pay them to stay. And I'll call the question.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign?
No.
Motion passes 3-2. Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to item number 42. We'll hear from staff.
Good luck.
Good morning. Joy Giles, Senior Planner for the Planning and Development Division. Item 42 is a request for approval of the Myrtle Street Estates Preliminary Development Plan located on the north side of Myrtle Street, approximately a quarter-mile west of South Sanford Avenue. The applicant proposes to develop a single-family residential subdivision on 19.59 acres with a maximum density of 2 dwelling units per net buildable acre for a total of 36 lots with a minimum lot size of 6,600 square feet. The subject site has a suburban estates future land use designation with A1 agricultural zoning, which permits a maximum density of 1 unit per acre with a minimum lot size of 1 acre. However, the site is located within the Urban Conservation Village Design Overlay, which allows a maximum of 2 units per net buildable acre when developed as a cluster design. The development approval process for the overlay requires a preliminary development plan to be approved, followed by a final development plan and a developer's commitment agreement, which would have to come back to this board for approval as well. The intent of the Urban Conservation Village Design Overlay is to encourage a cluster design that promotes a much smaller lot size than might be commonly seen in traditional zoning classifications in order to preserve a greater portion of open space for greenway area for the residents. The cluster development must preserve a minimum of 50% of the net buildable area, exclusive of any wetlands and floodplain, as open space greenway that must be preserved under conservation easement. Additional design criteria for the cluster development include a 15-foot minimum perimeter buffer and a 10-foot buffer adjacent to Myrtle Street. All structures must maintain a perimeter setback of no less than 35 feet from the perimeter of the development and 140 feet from the center line of Myrtle Street. The development must connect to public utilities. Staff has determined that the proposed plan meets the intent and requirements of the Urban Conservation Village Design Overlay in that it will provide a minimum of a 15-foot buffer along the west perimeter and a 25-foot buffer along the right perimeter. There is a large open space tract adjacent to Myrtle Street, and there will also be a buffer provided along the right-of-way as well. The lot design layout will ensure that all structures will be in compliance with the perimeter building setbacks, and the development will be connecting to public utilities. Also, the development will provide 50% of the net buildable acreage as open space, which is approximately 9 acres, or just a touch over 9 acres. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on December 1st, 2021, and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the request. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the Myrtle Street Estates Preliminary Development Plan as requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to the commission, I have no written request to speak. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this item? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, we'll close public input. Questions from the board? Commissioner Zimbauer?
Yes, can you, if you're able to, the question I have is on the open space, the 50% open space, how much of that is uplands?
So the open space, the 50% is calculated completely from net buildable. There is approximately 1.5 acres of floodplain, but the 50% comes out after that.
Understood. So the answer is all of it's uplands?
From the
open space.
The open space, yes, that is correct.
That's what I wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Yes, just for verification. And the reason I raise that for my fellow commissioners, we've often heard from the public that, well, this is really a red herring because it's all wetlands and it's really not going to be able to be used by the residents because they're going to be walking up to their waist in water. I just wanted, for the record, to make sure that these were upland, open, green spaces that people could enjoy. This is in my district, and I certainly appreciate Mr. Miller's willingness to afford that open space and go to a clustering type subdivision. So I will be supporting this moving forward.
Any other questions from the board? This is a District 2 item. Is there a recommendation from the District 2 Commissioner?
I move approval.
Second.
There's a motion, second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. This time, move on to the county manager. I know we already addressed items 56 and 57. Do you have anything else to report?
Nothing at this time, sir.
Okay, thank you. This time, move on to the County Investment Advisory Board Advisor report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. Last week, the FDA actually approved eye drops that are capable of taking the place of reading glasses.
Let me know how that works out.
Yeah.
There goes your insurance prices, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. And there's a Fed meeting today and tomorrow. The Fed's going to be making an announcement. The last time the Fed met, they actually dropped the transitory message for inflation that had gotten really, really old over the course of the last year because clearly it wasn't transitory. And right now the Fed's credibility is becoming a bit of an issue. So the expectation is that tomorrow they're going to announce a doubling of the taper pace. So the taper is reeling in the quantitative easing purchases, which arguably shouldn't be going on right now with the economy in the shape that it's in. So by the time they wrap that up with doubled pace, that will open the door for rate hikes eventually. Now, as far as the timing of that is concerned, there's a lot of disagreement, and I'll get to that in just a second. But also, third quarter GDP was at 2.1%. Never would have guessed that would be the case, but ultimately what's happened is that the goods are not being able to be purchased by consumers because they aren't around. Company payroll growth has slowed. That is another surprise that it continues to slow down, that the number of people that are getting jobs, at least at companies, is continuing to slow down. The Omicron variant is adding a lot of uncertainty. On one hand, it doesn't seem to be quite as severe. On the other hand, it seems to be spreading more rapidly. Not really asserting itself here in the U.S. yet, but the U.K. is having some big, big problems. So we anticipate that it's going to be coming at some point. And then finally, the debt ceiling problem, which a week ago we would have talked about the possibility of government defaults on some of their obligations and possible government closures, but that is not going to happen. That seems to be resolved. So the Fed is worried about two things. Their two mandates are employment, full employment, and stable prices or inflation. They're failing on the inflation right now, although arguably the Fed doesn't have a whole lot to do with that right now. It seems to be out of their grasp, but we got headline CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. The last time it was reported on Friday, it's the highest pace, price increase pace since 1982. And, even though the Fed can't do anything about it, they can't pretend that it's not a problem. Hence, when they meet, they're going to do something. They're going to show the markets that they are concerned, that they're not discounting this, that this is a problem. Employment, it's another problem for different reasons. The Fed wants the jobs to come back. The jobs have come back. The last time we looked at a JOLT survey, which is job openings and labor turnover survey, there were over 11 million job openings. Again, this is the same case as it was in July. Now we're back up to 11 million openings. By the same token, unemployed job seekers now total less than 7 million. So 7 million people officially looking for work, and counted among the unemployed, 11 million jobs. Big disconnect. There may be some help on the way there. This graph, the blue line is state unemployment benefits. The orange line is state plus federal unemployment benefits. The federal unemployment benefits ended on Labor Day. And the thought is that a whole lot of people were receiving a check, a lot of times that normally had not. Self-employed worker, gig workers, they aren't anymore. Savings were elevated going into this. Savings have been chipped away at. Obviously, the holiday season is going to chip even more at those savings. The thought is that a lot of folks who have not decided to go back or start looking for work will start looking for work. So, That brings us to current investment choices. Obviously, the economy is in a strange state right now. The Fed is going to do something tomorrow. The big question is, when are rates going to increase? And nobody's really sure of that. Now, the reason that I left, again, on that first left-hand chart, the ones that are scratched out are the two previous meetings. So you can see that the 12-month Treasury was trading at 7 basis points a couple meetings ago, and we haven't been buying in here because the rates haven't been favorable, because you have other options that were higher, that were liquid, that allowed us to keep things liquid and then move things over when they made sense. Over the course of the last couple months, yields have risen. They are more favorable now. You know, your pool rates are still around 4 or 5 basis points, which is next to nothing. That traditionally has been a place you can park short-term monies. Right now, parking monies in those pools is not as advantageous because you have much better options all of a sudden. So we are going to have some recommendations. Your banks, your Florida banks, don't want the money. They have been slowly lowering the amounts that they're willing to pay. One bank came down that was paying a quarter and is now willing to pay 12. So some of those monies have already been shifted. Your short-term liquid options are less favorable. So recommendations. Recent maturities. In November, you had several maturities. Those first two Florida Palms were used for expenses, as was that $15 million Treasury maturity. They were stationed there so that you could pay your bills because this is sort of a drain period. Overall, your tax revenues haven't started coming in October and November. You do have some upcoming maturities. There was a $20 million Bank United CD that matured that had been at 20. They were only willing to pay 10. Obviously, that didn't make sense, so that got shifted to Florida Prime at 30. That was a decision that was made. Florida Prime also came in and offered a 34 for 9-month paper relative to what other choices you have. That was another, the clerk's office moved forward with that. So the recommended purchases, this is also kind of a tricky tax flow time right now. You have monies flowing in, you have big purchases flowing out. You have a sheriff's fund payment in early January, which is larger than it normally is. So we're going to kind of let these shuffle or settle just a little bit, but it makes sense to make some purchases here because yields are so much higher. And what I'm recommending is relatively short purchases that are not going to have a whole lot of market impact. If the Fed late next year decides to start raising the short-term rates, we'll be okay. And my thought is by the time we roll into January and February, when you've got more money in the door, I expect to see higher yields, and we're able to ladder those out into the next year and the year after that. But I'm recommending in addition to the $30 million worth of term purchases, which basically were reinvestment for all practical purposes, we're recommending a $10 million T-note in February of 2023, April 2023, July 2023, and August 2023. To some degree, those fill gaps in your cash flow. The yields are also significantly higher than the 4 or 5 basis points that you're seeing in the pools. We don't have really much options in terms of additional monies that can go into the banks right now, and they continue to reduce them. So, this is the total of that 50 plus the 30 takes care of gives us some leeway to increase the pool balances between now and the end of the year. Those will be spent in short order. And then we'll come back in January and probably have additional purchases to make. I certainly didn't. We expect that the Fed is, over time, going to increase rates, but we can't stay in cash because you're not earning much of anything here. We also can't continue to think it's going to be on down the line, that rates are going to be higher, so we need to dip the toe in. So this is what we're asking. There's a motion to implement these purchase recommendations that I'm making based on the report submitted today and recommend that the clerk implement and the said board recommendations.
Thank you. Before we go to the commission, is there anyone in the audience that'd like to address the board on this item? I see no public records, no public input forms. Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, we'll close that and ask the board for direction. Commissioner Zimbauer.
Make a motion to adopt the recommendation of a financial advisor based on the report submitted today and direct the clerk to implement said board adopted recommendations.
Second.
We have motion second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you all.
Travel safe.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
Okay, before we move on, I'm going to be going to the county attorney's briefing. The hour is 11:35. I think we should hear this next issue because there's a couple items from the county attorney. I'm hoping that we'll go to our lunch break at 12:30-ish, and that's our goal. And then we'll start our meeting later by taking a little bit longer recess. If there's no objections to that, seeing none, we'll move on. County Attorney, Mr. Applegate.
Mr. Chairman, before I go to the executive search issue, I want to read a report. It's brief, and it relates to restitution. For quite some time, I have told this board in regards to restitution from our former taxpayer and others, that we need to proceed prudently, patiently, and cautiously. And of course, the main reason for this, of course, the conduct is that, quite simply, there are a number of investigations ongoing, and there may be more investigations in the future. As you know from individual briefings, I've had several meetings with our outside counsel, Carol Wick of Foley Lardner, attorney Frisch Scheller, who represents Joel Greenberg, and the U.S. Attorney's Office, and of course, our current tax collector, J.R. Kroll. As I've said in the past, restitution in a criminal proceeding is a unique process involving several steps. You may recall that a few months ago, I advised you that a federal order established, if you will, an account where proceeds are to be used for restitution will be deposited in that account. I refer to that as step one. I'm here today to report on step two in this process, only as it pertains to Seminole County. But first, I need to emphasize this. I'm requesting that you do not comment on what I'm about to report on. As I said, I am available, as you've always known, for individual briefings. There are still pending investigations and may be new ones down the road. First, I want to thank Carol Webb, our outside counsel, for opening the doors for me, both with Frisch Scheller, Greenberg's attorney, and the U.S. Attorney's Office. I will say that everyone's been open and cooperative over these long months and many, many meetings and phone calls. And of course, I want to thank J.R. Kroll for his cooperation and assistance to my office during this process. So now for step two. I have reached a tentative agreement, verbal agreement, and I emphasize verbal, with Joel Greenberg's attorney, Frisch Scheller, for restitution in the amount of $1,870,351.61. Now, how is that derived? You may recall that when we had the special audit done after the resignation of Joel Greenberg, our auditors noted that on the blockchain issue, he felt the county was entitled to $98,000. On the improper use of credit cards, $354,000. Property flip, I cannot go into details on that, $262,000. And sports memorabilia, $2,754. And I've also agreed to the use of consultants and attorney fees, and the attorney fees that were generated as a result of the criminal investigations, mainly by the Department of Justice, but it required the tax collector's office after Joel Greenberg resigned, and some of the money that was allegedly spent on attorneys prior to that, the sum of $471,967, and this is where we get the 61 cents. On the consultants, I've agreed to the amount of $685,630. So all of this adds up, as I said, to $1,870,351.61. Now for step 3 in the process is actually recovering that amount. So how will that happen and when? Well, hopefully either at sentencing or prior thereto, funds will be made available. But I can assure you, if that does not happen, then I will be asking your permission at a public meeting to continue the employment of the law firm of Foley Lardner with their firm's expertise to go after every individual and entity possible to collect the funds. So step 2 is complete, and there are reasons that I cannot go into that none of this is in writing. Again, I will emphasize that I will be available, as I always am. I've tried to keep each of you informed as much as possible on an individual basis, but this concludes my report, and I will keep you posted as this thing progresses on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Applegate. Anything else you have?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. And now for the executive search firms. On November 17th, in response to a request for a proposal for executive search firms for the recruitment services for a county manager, the county received 2 proposals. The proposals are from GovHR USA, based in Northbrook, Illinois, and Robert E. Slavin, Inc., doing business as Slavin Management Consultants, based in Norcross, Georgia. In working with procurement, we've decided that each company will be given 20 minutes for a presentation, and after each presentation, obviously allow this board and public comment 10 minutes for questions. The board will then have a discussion and then a motion to select one of the companies. So we'll start and we'll proceed in alphabetical order. The first company up is GovHR USA, and I know that both companies have submitted PowerPoints.
Mr. Applegate, who will be keeping the clock?
I'm going to ask Brian to keep the clock.
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
20 minutes.
20 minutes for
20
each
minutes.
presentation. Once they give their address, you can start the time.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Honorable Chair and Commissioners. I'm James Deneen. I represent GovHR out of Oak Brook, Illinois. I'm the local representative here in Florida. You probably know, to give you a little better background on my, from my perspective, because I'd be your local representative of a staff of over 60, is that if you've looked at took the time, kind of wasted time, but to look through my resume, I've got about almost 44 years in government experience with a couple of master's degrees in government, and I've been with GovHR for about 3 years. I got recruited after I retired I was Volusia County's manager for 12 and a half years. And by the way, before I make this mistake, if I refer to you as council instead of commissioners, please excuse me, because that was beat into my head for 12 years. We want to thank you for the opportunity to compete for this job. As we know that this is the most important, in some ways I'm biased, I think the absolute most important decision that the council makes, the commission makes, see, I knew I'd do that the commission makes, which is to pick your manager, to make sure that the policies that you enact and that you put forward as a group are put in place by that manager, and that the government's run effectively and efficiently. The big issue is, how do you pick between firms? And I think there are a lot of good firms out there. There are some that are not so good. There's a lot of good firms. And here's what I'll tell you. This is my experience from all my years in government, because I've been on the other side of this, where we pick people. And that is, most firms that are decent firms are going to get you, if they do the advertisements right, they are going to get you those candidates that are looking for jobs. Now, that can be good. You're going to get people that are qualified people, but you're also going to get people that are interested. Sometimes it's a stretch, especially in a job this size, or there are people that want to move to Florida. There are people that want to, that have issues and want to change employment. And you're going to get everything from people that are not qualified to marginally qualified and some qualified people. You're also going to get people that, in some cases, in a lot of cases, it's not their fault, but they have baggage. Because we know what happens in some cases, and people can, even doing their job, end up in trouble and lose their job, and especially in the public sector. Those communities that are not well-run, that are not fiscally responsible and not stable, and maybe have environments where people are not thronging to go there, okay? They, in some cases, have to settle for people that are willing to work for them, that have the best qualifications that they can attract. But that's not the case in Seminole County. You're a premier government in the state of Florida. You've got a good reputation, you're fiscally sound, you're politically stable, you're big enough, you have enough challenges, it's an interesting community, and you live in one of the most beautiful places in Florida. That being said, is that you don't have to settle. I think that you could, and I think you will get, an opportunity for some of the best candidates in the country. But the best candidates are not looking for a job. The best candidates are employed, and they have good jobs, and their councils don't want to get rid of them. But like in things that happen in life, a lot of those candidates are people that are looking, what you want is looking for an opportunity. And a lot of times, these people are people that we know of. And one of the things that I think works in our favor is because that while we have a big staff, we have 35 consultants and another 8 research assistants, which really help us on background checks, and 10 support staff, that we have a network that's beyond the advertising that we do. Now, let me give you an example. After over 42 years in the public sector, I know a tremendous amount of managers, all through Florida, a lot in Ohio, a lot in Virginia. In fact, I know one woman specifically in Ohio that this would be the right job for. She's not looking for a job, okay? Bottom line is, and I know you're going to find this hard to believe, that when I retired, I even got more calls from people who said, Jim, if the right job would come along, I am not going to put my credentials out there unless the right job would come along, and then I might be interested. Well, this could be the right job for a lot of people. And if you take all the people that we have, or all the people that like a person like I knows, then you take our CEO and our president of our company, and then multiply that by 35 times of all the other consultants we have in 41 different states. We have a network of people you would not believe that we know of that are not necessarily hunting for jobs. But what they'll do is they're interested if the right job comes along. Because here's the issue in the public sector. It's unfortunate, and it's especially true in Florida. Once you let people know, and you're good, that you might be interested, and you know this is sad because in some cases it's people get to a certain point in their career where they want to maybe take another opportunity. So what happens is they get into that point, but they're afraid. Well, what happens when you have a big giant network is people like that, when they see the ad or we send out the email blast, they'll call us. And a lot of times before they'll hand in the resume, a lot of people will want to know, okay, is this really the right job? And in my case in Florida, I mean, they'll come specifically and ask me, what's this community like? And I have a really good feel for, and I'm very high on this, on where this community is going and what this part of the state is like. That being said, I think that puts us really a step ahead of most other recruitment firms. Now, I have a quick, and I'll go through it fast, PowerPoint, and I'll do the one thing that I was always taught to do, and that is never read a PowerPoint. So if we can start, I'll go real quick. Oh, I've got the clicker. You want to do it? Okay. Oh, I can do it here. This just shows all the 41 states that we do business in. As you can see, since 2009, we've had almost 1,000 placements. So in addition to the network of people we know, all the placements are also part of the network. Next slide. I'll only say here on our path to success, it's all about partnership with us and the client. Our approach is second to none. There's a big commitment to diversity, and our firm is female-owned. We are known for our commitment to communication, and we believe in local government. You can see by the statistics here that the clients that we have are very pleased with our work. 94% of the people that we've ever worked for are very pleased, and we'll use this again. As you can see here, 28% of our clients are repeat customers in just the last couple of years, and 46% have more than one placement. Phase one. I'm going to go, well, I'm ahead of myself here. All right. I'll go quickly through the phases. Phase one is when we sit down, and this is the commitment you get from me, and that is I will spend time with each of the commission members and whoever the other stakeholders are that you want me to talk to find out what you're looking for and what you need. And a big part of my responsibility is to understand what people really want, what they need, so I don't waste the time for the client or for the candidates. We'll develop then a job announcement, a position brochure, and a detailed recruitment timetable. This timetable, all these things will be approved by you, the position announcement and the brochure. The position announcement goes out first. It's sort of a teaser that goes out in the beginning when we send out our first blast. The next slide shows the different phases. There are 6 phases, and it takes about 14 weeks, and you'll see why as we go through this. The next phase, phase 2, is our candidate outreach, and this really is collecting our resumes. We will be personally identifying and contacting individual candidates through this big system we have where we have this great big database. We're going to be looking at things like their leadership, their management skills, the size of the organization that they have had experience with, their experience in addressing challenges and opportunities that are like Seminole County's. Our database will range from several hundred to several thousand names that we know are people that may be interested. We're going to put our placements, like a lot of people do, in major public periodicals. Our social media is through LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, and we use this, even I don't understand how it works, but it's an algorithm that allows you, I didn't know you could even do this, that allows you to go backwards through these mechanisms. So you may have people out there that have private sector skills that fit this, that maybe have some other public sector public sector education or experience that would fit this job. That's especially true when we go out for candidates for technical expertise like engineers. Also, the advertising list you will approve before we send it out. Let's see here. All right, phase 3, this is when we do the evaluation, and this takes about 3 weeks. We do the evaluation of the resumes. In a job like this, if we recruit correctly, we'll get well in excess of 150, 60 resumes of people that should be relatively qualified. We will then we'll do an overview of those, and we'll review their credentials And in relationship to the recruitment brochure, we will narrow down the candidates that meet the qualifications. We'll ask them to complete a questionnaire explaining their prior work experience. And then what I will do is a live interview of about an hour by Zoom with the top, usually 10 to 12 people is where we get to. And then we do at least 2 references per candidate at that time, focusing on that 10 to 12 that we interview. Now, if they fall through the cracks, then we may add some people. In other words, sometimes it's hard to get from 15 or 18 to 12. Sometimes people are marginal. If we have any problems in that selection process, then we'll move into those other candidates. We also do internet social media searches on each of the final candidates. I will tell you that we have 8 people that do research on for our background checks and also for social media and different platforms. The things that we find are pretty amazing. And what we spend a lot of time, because we handle a lot of clients, and the absolute worst thing you can do to a client is get them to go down a path, especially if that person's name appears in the paper as a finalist. And then it's interesting how then people find out some dirt on somebody that we should have known. So we go out of our way to make sure that that doesn't happen. Phase 4 is a presentation of the recommended candidates. And what we do here is we prepare a recruitment report presenting the credentials of the candidates most qualified for the positions. We'll provide an electronic recruitment portfolio that contains the candidate's materials along with a mini resume for each candidate, so each candidate's credentials are presented in a uniform way. The report will arrive in advance of the recruitment report presentation, and then I will spend whatever appropriate time is necessary reviewing the recruitment report and providing additional information on the candidates. Because the issue here is, if we have about 10 or 12 candidates, then we're trying, normally I'm going to try and make my effort to try and get down to anywhere from 5 to 8. And this will be the process that we'll go through, because eventually what we have to do is get down in the next phase to whatever the top number of people that you want to bring in, and it depends on the council. That's something the commission. That's something I have to work with. It depends on how many people you're comfortable with bringing in and interviewing personally, and it depends on the quality of the candidates we get. This is a question that comes up all the time. Internal candidate approach. A lot of times, and it is possible, that the local person, especially if they're sometimes in the organization, is the best qualified candidate. But it only serves the commission and that candidate if they beat out the rest of the candidates. If they're the best, they should show to be the best. So what we do is we always treat the internal candidates like the external candidates, and we give them every opportunity to be successful in the process. But we're pretty strict about this in the sense that if you have an internal candidate that wants to be part of the process, they have to submit like everyone else, they have to provide the credentials like everyone else, and they'll be evaluated the same way. They have to meet the minimum qualifications, and they have to have the experience. But they have to follow all the guidelines and meet the deadlines, too. Phase 4 is the interviewing process and backgrounds. As I mentioned, we are going to go from 7 and 8 down to 3 or 4. And then what we do an additional background prior to the final interviews that takes place per. Here are some of the things that we look at, because this has become a bigger and bigger problem. Social Security and trace and verification, U.S. federal criminal search, enhanced verified national criminal checks. We look at the National Sex Offenders Registry, the most wanted list of the DEA, FBI, the OFAC terrorist database search. We check all felonies and misdemeanors that someone have that are reported to a national database that we have control or access to. We do a county and statewide criminal record check. We do a civil record check. Bankruptcy liens and judgments, we review those. And we do, this is another really important, an educational verification, so that all the degrees people say they have, they actually have. Believe it or not, A lot of these things are bigger problems than you think. We had a situation where we were not invited to be the firm. In one situation, they brought a candidate in, and at the final notice, and in all fairness, this firm did a really good job, but it turns out the person did not have the degree they said they had. They were on their way to get it, so to speak. And the last is Phase 5. Or Phase 6, I mean, and that is the appointment of the candidate. And we will aid, and also in Phase 5, we will also help you, depending upon how much need you have, for interview questions and procedures for editing, review, comment. We'll facilitate final interviews. And then on Phase 6, we'll help coordinate also travel with the candidates, and also we'll help in negotiations of the contract if you desire so. The rest of my slides are really talking just quickly about our commitment to diversity. It is a big issue with us in our company. The next is our guarantee, and that is that we will stay with you until you've selected the ideal candidate. We will search for additional candidates if it's necessary, and then we offer a 1-year guarantee where there's no consultant fee for a new search if that person leaves. These are some of the reasons in summary why you would pick us. Really, our experience, our outreach component, our over 11,000 visits to our Career Center each month, which connects us to our big network, our commitment to diversity, our excellent reputation, and our overall experience and success rate with all of our clients. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't take too long.
Well, within the allotted time limit, before we go to the commission for comments, you can stop the time. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address the board on this? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close public input. Now we'll ask to set the clock to 10 minutes, please.
Then could someone other than Mr. Zembauer go first?
Sure.
I'm just raising my hand. I'm sorry.
I know, but there are 5 of us.
You can go in
That
alphabetical
means
order.
2 minutes. You get 2. Give him 2 minutes,
You can go in
please.
alphabetical order, it doesn't matter
Don't
to
set
me.
it for 10, set it for 2.
Commissioner Lockhart would like to go first.
2 quick questions. Is there a possibility to weed out the terrorists in Phase 3 instead of Phase 5?
We try to weed them out very early on.
Okay, all of those things sound wonderful, but I'd like to, if possible, do that, sooner than later. Would like to explore a little bit more your position on stakeholder engagement. What does that look like, and at what point in the process do you recommend including that?
In what sense do you mean? I mean, under our bid, what we do is we do all the reviews that you want us to do because it's the commission's decision. So we take our direction from you. If you want us to do some more community outreach things, there's built in about 12 or 15 hours in my time to do that, but I like to tailor it the way you want us to. Now, we offer, that's not part of our fee, it's an additional fee, and we'll work with you if you want to structure other types of community input.
Okay. I'm thinking of the fact that, yes, this person will work for the Board of County Commissioners, but they really are working for the citizens of Seminole County.
Correct.
And they have an incredibly important base of employees that they will be engaging with. And so I would like feedback, not a recommendation, but feedback from stakeholders that are engaged and involved, members of the community, maybe the business community, members of our employee group. I'm seeing it as being, the process as being more than just the 5 of us interviewing a few candidates and picking the person that we think is best, because I personally would like to have input from others, from different perspectives.
We have experience doing that, but I will tell you that's an individual decision. If you'd pick us, we'll sit down with you and figure out what is, because each community is different on how you want to engage that, and you want to make sure that it turns into productive, okay, and you want to make sure how that information comes to you. One thing I will suggest that I think really works, especially with stakeholders that are your staff and things like that, in some cases, having them draft questions for you so that you get to ask them and you get to hear, but let them get the answer that they're trying to understand this person. As for community groups or whatever, I have to leave that up to, we will work with you, we will come up with a reasonable fee if it's going to cost us money to do that. We have a lot of expertise in doing different types all across the country, but they're so particular to the community.
Thank you.
Commissioner Herr, then Commissioner Constantine.
Thank you. So you mentioned on page 14 of the proposal that you actually will do leadership/personality testing.
We offer that. That's one of the few things that's an optional cost.
And how often do you do that?
We do that, in other words, we do that upon request.
I understood that, but how often when you're doing searches do you do that?
You mean like we'll do 200 and some this year?
However many you've run, how often have you done that? Let me make it easier.
To be honest with you, I haven't done that one yet.
Okay. And then the community stakeholder input, when you're doing your searches, what is your experience at hosting those?
I'm going to go by the limited experience I have, but also the experience that the staff has at GovHR. And it really depends on the community, and it depends on what the history is in the community of people getting involved and how the councils feel about allowing that kind of input to influence their decision. And it really depends on how you want that information to come to you. Some people want the information and then just want to look it over themselves via email or whatever. Other people actually want to be there and hear what people have to say. So my experience is that it really depends on the community, and that there is no cookie cutter way of doing it. Because there are different groups in each city that have different influence on who the council should pick.
Can you define the role of a recruitment coordinator and a reference specialist?
Oh, yeah. The recruitment coordinator is a person like me that actually does the entire process, does the resumes, does the interviews, decides based on the interviews and the background material we get, what priority people fit in terms of their hierarchy. The research assistant is the person that goes in and actually does the following. They go in and do background checks. They do the now, we use some criminal background checks where they coordinate it, but they also do all the things where a civilian can check those things. They do all the media checks. They do all the social media reviews. And so they provide us that. They also check, not only do they check references, they also check their educational credentials.
Thank you, Commissioner Constantine and Commissioner Zimbauer.
James, it seems in your presentation that you yourself will be very much involved in this whole process. Can you give us more of your background other than just Volusia County Chairman, please?
Oh, okay. I, over the last 42-plus years, worked in Dayton, Ohio for 18 years, from everything from planning all the way up to public works. Moved over to Montgomery County, ran the Public Works Department, the Solid Waste Authority, the Waste to Energy Program, and at the same time became the Assistant County Administrator for construction and all public buildings. The City of Dayton, that was in 2002, got in very serious fiscal problems, which they were a fairly stable city, and when I left, they had a good reputation. They had a situation where they had some strange political issues and a manager they didn't get along with. They fired the manager and then found out that they were in such bad fiscal shape that the state told them that if they didn't get their house in order, they would take them over in the spring of 2003. They were actually going to come in and take over the government. They asked me to come from Montgomery County back to put the city in order, which I did, and got them in good shape, eliminated their debt, and then I got recruited I was working, and happily working, and I got recruited to come down and help Volusia County as manager. And then they had some issues, and then the issues were 20-fold when the Great Recession hit. And we had very serious issues, and I had to, among other things, aside from everybody wants to cut taxes, reduce our workforce by 500 people, and we had to cut our costs by about $50 million. I was responsible for that. If you read my resume, we did a lot of things while we were doing that. We actually worked with you on Sunrail. We actually never stopped doing capital projects the whole time. I'm very proud of the legacy that we left and a lot of the things that they're now doing. In fact, a lot of you may have the same issue going on. A lot of the things that I worked on as manager in 2007, 8, 9, 10, a lot of those were getting ready for success in the future, and we didn't have it. People were really on us about developing for jobs and to allow people an opportunity to grow the community. And to be honest with you, we got ready, but as you know, things didn't happen very quickly. Now what's happening, everybody thinks that all this growth exploded, and really what happened was, and especially for property that was already developed, had gotten the rights to develop, it was in the pipeline all this time, and now all of it has come to fruition.
Thank you. I want to get to Commissioner Zimbauer. Commissioner Zimbauer?
Sorry if I went too long.
Thank you. What's the average length of your candidates' tenure at your clients?
You know, that one I have to get back on you. I don't know across, we have over 200 this year we're going to have. I can't tell you. It's pretty good. I know that the people that we have lost, in most cases where people have recontacted us, the average was about 3.5 years of the people we lost the quickest. But I don't know, I could find that out for you, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Good question.
And one final question is, in a very short summary, maybe 30 seconds, describe what you believe the best candidate for this position would be for this county.
I didn't hear you. What was that?
If you could describe in 30 seconds or less what you believe the perfect candidate for this county would be for this position.
I think first and foremost, it's somebody that carries out the will of all the council members. I say these council, all the commission members. I think they carry out the collective will. I think they do that in a way that is effective, efficient, and is responsible for the costs of the county government, and also somebody that understands, appreciates, and respects the employees that they have on board. And I think it's somebody that can do all those things and have be respected by the community at large.
Thank you. End of time. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mr. Applegate?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark, could I ask you to get Mr. Slavin?
It's a soundproof area. You can't hear anything. You all know that.
What's happening?
Ms. Slavin, we will give you 20 minutes. The time will start after you introduce yourself, and that'll include your name and your company and your address.
Say that again? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to be back. I'm Bob Slavin. I'm president of Slavin Management Consultants. We are a company that does a number of things for local governments, mostly in the human resources arena.
Start the time, please.
But most of what we do is executive search, and that's what I started the company to do, and that's what I have been about for, I hate to tell you how long, but since 1977, since I left local government, I've been doing this. Have a company that's based in Norcross, Georgia. As I mentioned, we do a number of things, but most of what we do is executive recruiting. The reason for Norcross is that we service the entire United States, and Norcross, or where I live, is 17 miles from the Atlanta International Airport, and it's a reverse commute. So I never have to worry about traffic. So, and I can get to and from my clients in one day much more often than what was the case before when I lived in California. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking to you about what you already know. It's a pleasure to be back. I guess you well know, many of you know at least, I've worked for the county a number of times, and it's always been a pleasure, and it's really a pleasure to be back. Surprising, as I was driving around, how things have changed, all for the better, and I'm delighted to have noticed that. that number, 850 government searches that's on that first bullet, is low. It's more like 900 now. And they're searches that I have been involved in, most of directly, and most of them rather intimately. Some of them I've been more in an oversight role, but they are each governmental or nonprofit searches where we placed executive level positions, mostly city or county managers. More than 95% of the placements we've made have stayed in their positions more than 5 years, and significantly more than 5 years. And that's a number that's important to us because the International City County Management Association will tell you that city and county managers' average tenure is about 5 years. Ours is significantly higher, and I'll get into some reasons why I think that's the case in a minute. More than, it says approximately on that slide, but more than 25% of our placements are women and minorities. I don't know how important that is to you, but it's a source of great pride to us. I did some calculations about 2 months ago, and I looked at what we had done over the last 6 months, and that number for the work that we had done during that period of time was much higher than that. It was more like 60%. And I think part of the reason for that is that the values of the country have changed. There are more qualified women and minorities, and more folks receptive to the idea of to realizing that they're qualified and receptive to the ideas of considering and hiring them. I'll manage this search. I'm not going to repeat what I've already said, but the team that would be working on this with me is a source of great pride to me. Dave Krings is a former county manager, former ICMA president, former Midwest, he's our Midwest regional manager. Barbara Lipscomb, some of you may recognize the name. She was city manager of Castleberry for a while, assistant manager and interim manager for Gainesville for a while. Her last city manager job was in Greenville, North Carolina, where she served for 5 years. She has been working for us for about 3 years. She lives near my office in Norcross, which makes it convenient for me, but she's got a lot of Florida credentials right here in Seminole County, too. Both Barbara and Dave have been ICMA credentialed managers. Both of them are kind of emeritus now, but Dave stays very connected, particularly with county managers, which have been, I think, very helpful in our effort to identify qualified county folks who might be interested in this job. Barbara is very closely connected to Florida, her Florida colleagues. She's been very helpful in trying to identify people who would probably never come to my attention who are in Florida as we try to service Florida clients. I should probably go back to that. We have, I've mentioned the office near Atlanta and why it's there, but we have affiliates in Arizona, California, Kentucky, Ohio, and Texas. The people who work with and for me have been with this company for, Barbara's the shortest tenured one at 3 years. The others have been with me for more than 10 years. And whereas they may do some other things, when they do recruiting, it's only for us. And I'm very proud of them, very frankly, extremely proud of them. Clients, Texas, county clients include counties all over the United States. I don't know whether Ketchikan Gateway is there or not, but it includes Alaska, or it should. And there's 72 of them. So we do know counties. In fact, I worked for my first professional job out of college was with Santa Clara County, where I worked for, I think, 7 years, mostly in HR, but also in the county executive's office. That county is a council manager government. It's got a charter similar to the way this county is organized, and it works like a council manager government rather than like a lot of counties that have that function more like a strong mayor municipality. That one was council manager. Our Florida clients, I think there's 55 of them. I may have missed one or two. They range, the organizations are located all over the state of Florida. So we do know this state quite well. One of the things that was kind of a part of my early career as a recruiter was I worked for. There are two companies in the United States that did local government recruiting on a nationwide basis back then. One of them was based in Chicago, which was Paul Reum and Associates, and the other was Korn Ferry International. And I worked for Korn Ferry International. They are a local government, a private sector search firm, but they had a local government practice. And we serviced the country from that practice into what is L.A., Century City. But we did work all over the country. Very early on, I was working for Florida agency simply because I guess there was no competition. So results-oriented, our work is based on your needs, not something that we pull off the shelf and bring to you. And those of you who may have been on the board before will hopefully recall that I spent a lot of time at the beginning of these processes talking with you individually, talking with your staff, with your permission, with community leaders, we'll tour the county. I'd like to tell you I've done that, but I haven't done that for about 11 years, and just in driving in today, I realized that it's changed a lot. I'd like to spend time doing that. But the point I'm making is I don't come here with any assumptions that anything that was on your minds or part of your goals and aspirations and values 11 years ago will be part of them now. We'll come in with a fresh set of eyes. Barbara will be with me, and we'll want to spend time with each of you, again with your staff. I see some familiar faces around the room when I was here earlier, but a lot of them are new. And the point is that once we find out what you're looking for, we focus on that, and that's the way we conduct the search. It's very closely tied to what you say you want, and if we for some reason are having trouble finding what you want, we'll come back and talk to you about it because there'll be something we'll need to adjust. But we advertise and we network, and the networking is probably the most important part of what we do to find folks. Once we know what you're looking for, we'll develop basically a source list based on where we think people that you might be looking for will be. They may most likely they'll be governments and counties, and sometimes our clients prefer a geographic location. We'll focus on those areas. But sometimes, and I noticed that with the work that we did for you the last time, for county manager at least, the requirements were broad enough so that we could have included some successful people who've not worked for counties. I'm not sure that we presented folks like that, but what I'm saying is that your criteria was set up in a flexible way so that if there were some opportunities that wouldn't necessarily be attractive to other local governments, they would have been to you. The sourcing, we make a lot of use of social media and internet connections, and a lot of associations that represent whose membership are local government officials, women in government, Hispanics in government, African Americans in government. ICMA provides a lot of resources that we use to find folks, to index people in different states and different jobs and with different interests. Once we identify people we think might be interested, we go after them and present them information about you. We will have developed a profile with your help. We'll send them that. We'll email them and then telephone them, and if they're not interested, we'll ask them who they might know that they are. So it's a pretty extensive process. And again, Barbara Lipscomb will be working with us, and she's wonderful at finding folks who might, and developing people who might otherwise not have applied. We do on-site meetings. We're here at least 3 times, and as many times as you need us, really, but at least 3 times. But we also meet with candidates, finalist candidates, at their work location. We've had to adjust that a little bit because of the pandemic, but increasingly, hopefully, we've been able to do it again. We learn a lot when we go to meet with a candidate on his or her own turf. Nobody knows why we're there but us, but we spend time wanting to see them in their work location, wanting to meet people who they work with and for. We're observing not just who we're interviewing them, but we're observing how they interact with people that they work with and know. And the focus we have is what you've told us you're looking for in terms of management style and personal characteristics. It's easy to determine whether or not they've had meet the experience and education requirements, but we're looking for some of the soft skills that you will have told us you're looking for, how they interact with people, how they manage leadership style. Again, nobody knows why we're there, but we're observing. We like to walk down Main Street with them and see whether or not people in town know them. We like to walk into the various departments of the local government and see how employees react to them. Sometimes we're able to meet with our bosses. Usually we can't because we don't want to get them fired. But it's something that we offer that nobody else does. But it provides us a whole bunch of insight into the person that I think is one of the reasons that the tenure of our placements is as long as it is, because we spend so much time trying to first of all figure out what you want and then find folks who meet the criteria you're looking for. So background investigations are thorough. Can't think of anything we don't do that you might think of. We certainly do criminal, civil records, court records, driving records, credit, education, any credentials they say they have, a credential manager we verify. Excuse me. I'm forgetting some, but we do Social Security check. We do a sex offender registry check. We certainly do referencing, and when we reference, we don't just talk to people who are on their list, but we have to ask them for permission to do background work, and ask them who they want us to speak to, but we don't. But we have our request is to do background work, and it does not limit us to just the folks that they've given us on a reference list. And we try to go back in the referencing at least 10 years or 3 jobs, and we references to others. So we like to think we have a pretty good idea how they do not what they do, we know what they have done, but how they do it. And you'll see a lot of that work. We also do create an extensive supplemental questionnaire that's tied back to what you've told us you're looking for. And very often that questionnaire is 20 or more questions long. Some of it is like are things that we want to know about their work history, like have they ever been fired, and if so, why, and what they might be looking for in terms of compensation, have they ever sued or been sued by an employer, things like that. But a lot of it, and most of it, is tied to very specifically what you've said you're looking for. And you'll see that document. We assist the board in designing the interview process, again, tailored to what you're looking for. We'll talk to you about that. Once we have the recruitment phase of the process completed, we'll want to come back and talk with each of you. And maybe we'll have to do it in this, because it's Florida, maybe in this room, and talk and present a group of folks to you with a lot of background work accomplished and a lot of information about them, and we'll ask you to help narrow the group from, there'll probably be 12 or so on that long list, ask you to narrow it or to rank those 12, so from 1 to 12 if you would, and presumably if that works the way it is intended to, we'll know which 5 or 6 you're most interested in, and those are the ones we'll focus on, and those are the ones we'll go meet and do the extensive background work on. But then, once that's done, and while we're at that meeting in which you're narrowing the group, we'll want to talk to you about what you want to do next, and we'll want to schedule the completion of the project. Our commitment to you is that we will succeed. We'll work with you until you have a placement made. We'll redo the search at no extra professional fee if the new county manager leaves within 2 years. We'll never recruit anybody we place here. We'll not actively recruit any of your employees for at least 2 years. The manager we place will never recruit. Typically, I'm going to talk about timetable in a minute because it's been modified a little bit because of COVID, but typically 90 days from the time you approve the recruitment profile until the candidate is hired. we can control that schedule. Obviously, it requires your help to make sure that works. But typically, that's the way the process is designed to function. We're prepared to begin the project within 15 days of entering into a contract, and we'll the issue about the schedule has to do with the competition we're facing now in this industry, and some of it related most likely to COVID. But we're finding that once we initially announce a job, first of all, unlike it used to be, you'd have to wait for publications to be published, and the ICMA published weekly, and some of the others were monthly. Right now, we'll place an ad, and it's out there that day. We'll begin to get responses immediately. We'll want to design the process so that you can be responsive to people who apply early. In other words, we don't want to set a final filing date for a month or 6 weeks out there and then find that the people who've applied earlier, we're forcing them to wait that period of time and then run the risk of losing them to other high-quality opportunities. So we'll want to talk to you about that. I'm running out of time, but the process is outcome-oriented, and it's based on outcomes that you folks have pretty clearly established that you want us to focus on. We consider ourselves sort of a consultant for you and an employer of you. Bottom line is we try to develop a partnership with our clients in which it's a comfortable working relationship where you know what we're doing, we keep you informed, and anything we have is yours. And our on-site visits are sort of unique. We've had to adjust a little bit because of the COVID-19, but some of our guarantees are the strongest in the field, and our costs are within industry standards and capped. And I think this is what our proposal provided to you. It's fees are almost 15.5, not to exceed expenses are 8,500 in rough terms, and that with a total of not to exceed 23,986. That expense budget is a not to exceed, and we don't spend any more. We don't charge you any more than we spend, and we'll invoice you with receipts. So it could be less, but it won't be more than 23,900. And
Okay, thank you. Actually, a minute ahead of schedule, a minute and 5 seconds. Oh, yeah, that's okay. Before we go to the county commission, is there anyone in the public who'd like to address the board on this issue? I have no written question. Anyone in the board? Anyone in the room like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close public comments. I'd like to go to the board. At this time, we'll start with Commissioner Herr.
What does your Human Resources Division do?
Comp and class primarily, but we also do some goal setting and some strategic planning. Dave Krings usually does that for us, but it's mostly class and comp, and that comes out of North Carolina, where we have our class and comp person position.
And how do you assure that we're casting the widest net possible?
You'll tell us most likely where to focus, but we will cast the net nationwide. There's almost no way to do a city or county manager search without using ICMA, and there's no way you can use ICMA without casting the net nationwide. We will.
So let me ask the question a different way. You put all that stuff out in the atmosphere. What are you going to do to drum up the best possible candidates?
After we do that, that's the shotgun. The rifle is, once you tell us what you're looking for, that's where we go find people. We focus there, and that may be partially geographically, but if you're telling us you want people who have certain characteristics, who have accomplished certain professional accomplishments, who have worked in communities where growth or economic development or tourism have been a major factors or characteristic, we'll find those organizations and we'll find who's in them, and that is the networking part of what we do. We also have a database, but I'll tell you, the database gets old in a hurry. If good people apply now, 6 months from now, if they're as good as they'll be gone. But I don't know if they're answering your question, but that is the pick and shovel part of what we do. And it, for everybody we contact, we probably get one positive response. We will also contact people we know around the that are in sort of colleagues of ours, and ask them, even though we don't expect them to be candidates, we'll tell them what you're looking for and ask them who they know. It's really a networking process.
Thank you. Commissioner Constantine, anything?
Not right now.
Okay. Commissioner Zimbauer?
I'll go last, y'all go ahead.
Commissioner Lockhart?
I'd like to know what your position is on including stakeholder involvement and engagement and what that would look like.
Again, that's up to you, but we've done just about anything you can think of, from spending time with stakeholders at the beginning of the process. Usually, first, I should say that anybody that we talk to outside of this group and is with your permission and/or instruction. So we understand who we work for, and it's the Board of County Commissioners, not anybody else. So, but having said that, we've done everything from spending a few extra days here talking with people you want us to talk to at the beginning of the process, to meet and greet sessions with finalist candidates. We did one recently in Durango, Colorado, during the coronavirus that had to be done virtually, but it was a community forum conducted over Zoom. 600 community leaders. First of all, they were asked. It took the place of a meet and greet, and the idea was to have their questions presented to us so that we were responding to what they wanted to hear from the candidates. We were down to 2 candidates. I monitored it. I asked the candidates the questions. It was being watched, or if you will, monitored by 600 people. I didn't know at the time. I would have been scared to death if I'd realized that. But at any rate, I was asking the questions, and then there was a opportunity for folks to respond back to the City Council, their responses to the questions. And all this is done over portals put on the website. It worked great. Didn't work as good, in my opinion, as it would have been if it wasn't for the virus, and the folks could have interacted personally. But the City Council got an awful lot of praise for that, because they had made a commitment early on that there'd be community involvement. The virus hit within a week or two after we started the process, and we had to modify it, and that's what we modified it twice. At the beginning, it was Dave Krings and I, we spent, hours and hours on the phone talking with stakeholders who we would have actually been in town to meet at the beginning of the process. And at the end, we did this virtual community meeting, and it worked out.
Commissioner Constantine?
Mr. Slavin,
yes, sir.
You have indicated a great deal about Ms. Limpskin.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, it's very important to know who the point person is. Who's going to be the point person for us? So we're going to interact with you, and if you're chosen.
You will see her, but you won't see her without me. I'm managing it.
There's nothing against Ms. Limpskin. I don't know. I just wanted to know who the
your
point
question is
person.
extremely important, and I will manage this search, and she will partner with me as we do it. But I manage it, and she works for me. And as I've indicated, you will never see her without me. And that's, I don't know whether I'm making the point that I'm trying to make, but it's my search, and I'm the manager of it, and she's, you couldn't have a better person than she working with me, is part of the point I want to make, but it's me.
I don't want to take up too much time from anyone else, but how many active searches do you have going on right now?
I haven't counted. Let's see, we have 2 for Coral Gables. One of them is probably finished. Excuse me for having to do it this way. One we're doing for the property appraiser in Palm Beach County. That's 3. We're doing a city manager search for a small town.
Not more than 10.
No.
Thank you.
If we get to 9, we stop. I wouldn't be-
That's what I really want to.
Right, we can handle 9.
I don't want a cookie cutter.
No.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
Thank you. How do you handle possible internal candidates?
First of all, you'll know of anybody that applies for this job, whether they meet the criteria that you set or not. If they work for this county, you'll know about it. Secondly, we treat them basically, qualified candidates, we treat basically the same way as we would outsiders, except you know about them. In other words, if they're not qualified and they don't work for you, you probably they wouldn't come to your attention. But if they're not qualified and do work for you, they will come to your attention. And where that becomes, I think, particularly significant is a couple of points. First of all, some of these people may be department heads or people who are aspiring to become a manager who are valuable employees to the Seminole County who you'll want to develop. So this is even if you say no, they're not qualified and we're not going to interview them, there is some opportunity to build them and to rather than to lose than to just tell them no. Secondly, if they are a finalist candidate, you interview them and hire them, fine. And we'll do the background work on them also, and I think that's important. But if they're not hired, we'll ask the chairman to talk to them about not being hired because, frankly, it's much again as a means to ensure them that they're valuable employees. They'll take that information from you folks a lot easier than from the hired guy. So I don't know if they're really answering your question, but it's very important to us, and we. Qualified internals apply. It's not at all unusual that they get the job.
Sure. All right, finally, being that this is your professional business, if I were to ask you quickly, how many candidates do you believe exist right now that you could identify without naming names based on your work for this position in this country?
Oh, in the country?
Yes.
Oh, hundreds in the country. That's right. It's getting them to apply. Probably thousands.
I'm talking about ones that you would specifically target for this county that you have awareness of right now.
It's hard to answer without knowing what you're looking for because everybody's different. But let's assume that you set the criteria and it basically is built around somebody who's had experience running local governments. There, between Barbara and Dave and me, we've come up with 150, 200 right away.
Thank you.
Doesn't mean they're interested.
Understood. No.
Okay.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we have limited time, I'm just going to make a couple of quick statements. I've worked with you twice, both
Yes,
on
sir.
the county manager search and MPO search. I thought you did a very good job on both of them. I've not spoken to you since that last time with the MPO. I think that both times that we've used you, or I've been involved, you provided very good questions for us to ask candidates. I want to thank you for that. I think the 2-year guarantee is important, and I like the way you actually did the meet and greet on both situations, and I think the on-site visit is just critical. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're out of time.
And then I'm out of here.
No, you're not out of here yet. If you could just take a seat, I need to turn it back over to Mr. Applegate.
Thank you.
I'm trying to stay within the time frame.
Thank you.
Which you did, and now, if there's no further public comment, it's time for you to have a...
I'm sorry. Yeah, I already did that.
Yeah, okay. So then,
Mr. Chairman, should we ask the other person to come back in again?
Yep. I think Mark went out to get him.
I'm not sure why we have them out in the lobby.
Perception more than reality.
Yeah, it's always up to them. We didn't require it.
Mr. Applegate, what's the next step?
Next step is for you to discuss the two candidates and make a motion to pick one.
Discussion from the floor, from the board. Is there a motion or direction from the board?
I'll make a motion to move forward with Slavin.
Okay. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there a discussion to the motion? Seeing no discussion, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Motion passed unanimously. Mr. Applegate?
The next step is we'll work with procurement. We have a form contract, but obviously we will work with Mr. Slavin on the scope, and procurement will sign the agreement.
Okay. Mr. Applegate, we're still under your report. Is there anything else you have to?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Herr?
So post-vote, I do have a couple of questions, or at least some thoughts. I think it's really important that we put together a timeline with Mr. Slavin that's detailed, including when questions get developed, because there's some places in here where they are late in the game from my perspective. We need input on that now so we're not backtracking later. And so there's a timeline in the RFP, but the timeline doesn't necessarily attach to the steps that were outlined in the RFP. So I need that put together. I would also, for the public record, because I did wince at the slide on recruitment of 25% being a good thing when 50%, I think, of the world is women. I think we have to make sure that I just think that was a bad slide, and I'm not going to hold it against anybody. But clearly, we are open to all candidates, and I just want to state that out loud.
Mr. Zimbow?
I would concur regardless of race, gender, religious belief. I think we owe it to the citizenry of this county to identify the best candidate. There were some things talked about and mentioned by Commissioner Lockhart that I don't want Commissioner Lockhart to take this wrong in any way, shape, or form. I do believe we need to engage our community to a certain extent, but we were all elected by this community and sent here. They've neither been shy or reluctant to voice their opinions to us on many things and all things. I just don't want us to get bogged down into a situation where we want to float this process through community leaders and multiple meetings and community meetings. We're here to represent the community. And I understand exactly what Commissioner Lockhart's desire is. I don't disagree. We operate in the sunshine. It's open. We open channels. People can call us, tell us, give us their opinions. But I'm not a fan of getting too many people involved in this process of identifying who the CEO of this county should be.
Thank you. Commissioner Herr?
Having participated in 2 superintendent search committees in this community, both of which, actually it may have been 3, resulted in outstanding results. In addition to the Seminole State College process, all 4 of those, I will tell you that it is certainly not an easy process when you go through that level of community engagement, but that level of community engagement creates engagement, and it brings perspective to the table that we may not have. And while the citizens have elected us, we are not all that in a bag of rocks. We are as good as we can be. We are human, and we need additional perspective. This community is bigger than the 5 of us, and I would welcome a well-thought-out plan that gets somewhere between what we're hearing here, but to not engage the community when we have this very rare opportunity to go through this process, I think would be a mistake.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity to clarify. I think I'm in no way suggesting that we abdicate our role or our responsibility. But this board many times has given the direction to the former county manager to convene community members, especially going into this new comprehensive plan, land development code rehaul, revamp that was going to require an extensive amount of community involvement and engagement. And so I think for me, it's even a little bit of a test to see how well the candidates will engage with the public. If we don't give them the opportunity in the recruitment process to engage with the community that we're asking them to serve, we won't know until it's too late how well they do it. I also believe that because our job is to legislate and it's the county manager's job to run the organization, that the synergy and what's the word I'm looking for? I really want to choose this word, the right word here. The chemistry between the CEO and the employees who actually drive the function of the organization, that actually meet the needs of the community, that synergy and that chemistry is so critically important, because our employees, frankly, work for us because they want to. And they could go anywhere right now. Competition is keen. And having the right county manager with the right dynamic, and I want to see that with our employees. I want to see, before we hire this person, how they're going to engage at all levels of the organization, because I don't want to hire somebody that I'm going to find out is just going to stay holed up in their executive suite and never go out and talk to the employees and be a part of the organization. So those are my two reasons for wanting that stakeholder engagement, and I didn't expand on that in my question, but I'm glad that I had the opportunity to really more fully explain what I was envisioning and why.
Commissioner Constantine?
Thank you. Well, Mr. Slavin, you see you have your work cut out for you, because you've just heard a number of different variations, but I think that the one thing that we are all looking for is, the widest scope of search, the most involvement you can with the five of us so you know who we are, what type of individual we're looking for. Certainly internal is extremely important, because our staff, the employees of Seminole County, are very important to us and very important to the citizens of Seminole County. And I think that also a buy-in of this community. I agree with Commissioner Zimbauer and Commissioner, the fact of the matter is that we're here to make the decision, but I believe as much of an involvement as we possibly can with the community and buy-in of the community is extremely important. So you have your work cut out for you, sir.
Thank you. Before I pass it over to Mr. Applegate, I will tell you that once they come on contract, which will take whatever time it takes through procurement.
Very quickly.
I will tell you that Mr. Slavin will be reaching out to all five of us individually, and Mr. Slavin will be putting together a timeline of events and criteria of what he's going to need from us, so all our concerns will be addressed, and then we're bringing it back to the board as a whole so we can take formal action on it as full transparent. Mr. Applegate?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Anything else?
Perfect. Lunch.
Look at us.
County Manager?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I think this would be the time to share with you all, based on going into this this process, to let you know that I will not be participating in the the search, and that it is my intention to retire June 4th of '22.
Okay. A little bit of a shock.
You know your timetable, sir.
Well, that was a bomb.
That's news, but okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Applegate, is there any issues with us starting the afternoon session at 2 o'clock?
I just want to make sure, I understand the 1:30 evaluation was on Larry Ross's schedule, but if he doesn't have a problem.
Okay, can you verify that?
Yep.
And I'd like to start at 2 o'clock.
Why don't we just say 2 o'clock, and if something changes, I'll let you know.
Okay. Any other
This way the
discussion?
public knows.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay. Seeing none, this meeting is recessed.